more you date, the more you realize that it's pretty old. I know, and that's what you have to, or it will be here next year.
Yes, they're like these type of things. I know, look at that. I know, I'm supposed to not do that in the workplace, but. Yeah. You guys have seen the evolution.
The transformation.
Oh my gosh, hello, yes. From wheelchair to walker to cane to, yeah.
That's a big deal.
We'll give Trish a few more minutes, see if she makes it.
If everybody sees a black puffy coat with a rich floral thing, I have left it somewhere. I've only worn it twice. I got it at the end of last season. Where the heck I put it?
Or you should go be,
Grab it up. It's nice. If you find it in Benihana.
unless you didn't get
Got it, got it. Anyway.
Is this being televised?
I probably have a few minutes, but I'd love to have my computer.
Are we on paper? Are we on paper?
I'm watching it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can send you what we did last time. I mean, I think Ken did as much work cleaning them up to the town speak than my minutes.
That
Or maybe
was
it
only
just
like
comes
15
natural
minutes.
to
It
you.
was just like changing
So
like
it was last
just from
week.
reading through the past few years. Anything like now.
Sorry, there's kids left
I think children.
All right, well, we can go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the November 8th, 2017 Open Space Advisory Committee meeting for the Town of Superior. Let's go ahead and do introductions. Ken Lish, Committee Chair.
Sean Samuelson, member.
Tracy Collar, member.
Ryan Welch, member.
Tricia Dunham, Vice Chair.
Sandy Pennington, Substitute Liaison.
Allison James, Staff Liaison.
All right, and with that, public comment.
Susan Bauer, 1770 Morrison Court, Superior, Colorado. I'm here tonight a bit late, but I wanted to extend to OSAC my compliments for the tenacity and the courage to do what you folks do and what you have done throughout this last year. Due to my own personal limitations and only so much bandwidth, I have not had a chance to get down here sooner to say thank you to each one of you for your courage and tenacity. I also wanted to extend to you, back in August, I presented the breeding bird study findings of the Hodgson Harris Reservoir to the town trustees. And last month, we presented them to POSAC, but we have not been before you. And so tonight, I wanted to present the studies to you and give you your own copies. So let me do that right now and hand these out to you. Thank you. Because I realize I only have 5 minutes technically. The study was done in collaboration with Boulder County Audubon. I worked with Steve Jones, who is the author of The Last Prairie, a Sandhills journal, and co-author of many other journals. He's done consulting work for Boulder County for over 30 years, roughly, and he has done 36 breeding bird studies and resource inventories for the city, county, and state open space programs. And so I worked under his supervision and with his guidance, and if you turn to the executive summary on page 3, Starting from the third paragraph down, this is what I just wanted to recap for all of you, and you can read the details later, but we documented 114 species out there. And of those, 47 of them are nesting, potential nesting species. And we also identified some uncommon birds, including tundra swan, snow goose, Barrow's goldeneye, northern bobwhite, snowy egret, black-necked stilt, marble godwit, sandhill crane, and merlins. Now, some of those were identified in previous years from previous studies, but collectively the study goes from 2007 to present. The details for just our breeding study for 2017 is captured in here, as well as a longer time frame. And I know that this committee made a recommendation to conduct an updated ecological study, so I wanted you to have this information. And it goes on to say, you know, we believe the diversity of the nesting and migratory bird species at the reservoir stems in large part from the diverse habitats present at and around the reservoir, including exposed shorelines, emergent marshes, grasslands, and riparian woodlands. The reservoir's location within a matrix of ponds and reservoirs in southeastern Boulder and northern Jefferson County are linked by protected open space and riparian corridors. Probably also contributes to the diversity of the bird life found there. He goes on to present some strategies that will maintain and enhance this avian diversity, but I realize I'm almost at my time limit, so I will let you read that later. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I also wanted to bring to your attention that in September, on the 26th, I believe, we did a bird walk at the reservoir. And we, with the Boulder County's assistance, and we were to cap it at 20, but we overbooked like the airlines, and we capped it at 25, but we still ended up having 28 show up. And it was very well received. And one of the volunteer naturalists who I had the pleasure of working with was Sue Cass, who used to be on POSAC and who had voted for the full restoration of the reservoir. So it was a pleasure to work with her on it, and she really enjoyed it and was amazed at the variety. And one of the things that came out of this study is, or that bird walk, I should say, is the fact that people did ask to have subsequent bird walks in the spring and the fall. So, energy permitting, I'd like to make that happen again next spring. And just wanted to share that with all of you, because I don't know if I'll be here next month. So it's the holiday season, and I wanted to get down here. And so thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Really, really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one in the front. I think so. That's, yeah.
All right.
Exactly. Exactly.
So with that, we can move into our 2018 work plan. Allison and I can drive. So figure what we can do to start is we'll pull up our 2017 work plan and use that as a base to just make adjustments from. ProStack, also Peter Bottomley, the chair of ProStack, sent us over their draft plan. They haven't had a chance to fully go through it as a committee yet. As you guys will all recall from our last meeting, Trustee Laces had recommended that the leadership of our group and ProStack get together and try to agree on certain overlapping items on whether or not they belonged in each of our own, where they belonged on the work plans, either under ProStack or OSAC. After talking with ProStack leadership, what was decided is we would just take a look at what they have as their draft plan as we move forward, see if there's any overlapping items. If there are low-hanging fruit that we can sit here and say, yes, that can go to ProStack, then great, we've made it easier on the trustees. If not, we'll just leave it on, and then ProStack will do the same. They'll look at our work plan at their meeting next week, see if there's any low-hanging fruit that they want to remove, And then if there is still any overlap, then it'll just be left up to the trustees to see what they would like to do about it. I guess, let's see. Tracy, you want to hit the lights over there? Enable editing. Okay. So I figure what we can do to start is just go ahead and,
I think you have to enable.
yeah, I clicked it. I think
Is it up at
the
top?
batteries might be dead on this.
Or you have the wrong one.
Or the wrong one.
No, it's the right one, but
Oh,
let's see if it's switched on.
where's the switch? Probably not switched on. Guess that would help.
See how that, see if it works.
All right. It's amazing what happens when you give it power. Okay. So I guess let's just go through what we currently have and eliminate what we think we can eliminate. Then how about we go through and discuss what we want to add? And then from there, we can take a quick look at what ProStack has and see if, looking at their plan, we'd like to make any adjustments. So leadership elections, an annual distribution of work, that seems fairly standard that we do every year. I think we can keep that. Schedule a joint meeting with the board, that's something I like to do. Meet with ProStack. This is actually one thing that I've noticed over the years. Let's see.
More of a second.
Yeah. So ProStack even has it on their second quarter. So that's when we end up doing it anyway. I think we might want to move this down to second quarter. Let me just grab that.
Well, it's 3 A and B. too, so it's
Right.
three.
When did you say you did it this year?
I think it ended up being in the second.
It was either the second or the very beginning of the third. It was in the summer. We were over at
Okay.
the sports stable.
Oh, come on.
You need to go over to the first column and then copy. You need to copy from column A, column A over.
Yep, missed that.
And you want to put it in second quarter, right?
Am I not in second?
No.
Nope. All right, we'll adjust.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm getting numbers later.
So you'll want to delete number 3A and B in first quarter.
Yep.
All right. Okay, determine annual public outreach and education programs.
So
We-
that's either stays there, or I think that can move to the fourth quarter.
The fourth quarter.
In prep for the
All right.
next year.
Because basically we'll be doing that tonight as well.
So we should probably move that down to the fourth quarter.
Did I did not? All right. And we can drop that. All right. Plan schedule National Trails Day. That stays. Review open space funding budgets and requests. This has kind of been a placeholder.
Isn't this, I assume, isn't this the review the open space funding and budget requests? Isn't that because they will have just approved their budget?
Is your mic on?
No, sorry. Is that better? Sorry, I'm trying to think if that's, because that's not really budget planning for this coming year. That's figuring out, that's reviewing what the town has approved, the board approved, right? I think.
I don't know what it is. What is it?
I think that related to when we recommended the expedited trails plan.
So we wanted to know what was in the fund.
Yeah.
and So I don't know if it
We
has
haven't
to
really done
stay
much
there.
with that since, and I know at least during the budget meetings, there wasn't, I think, anything added.
Mhm.
So I mean, we could drop that if we wanted to.
Yeah.
mean, it's probably not a bad thing. to-
When do we usually review, like, the amount of money we're going to have for COSA and programs and everything?
So we make the recommendations usually in the third or the fourth quarter. So for instance, in the third or fourth quarter of 2017, we would make the recommendation for the 2018 budget.
And I think we did that in July.
Right.
We did that
And
at the July meeting.
So when we move this to,
Well, and then this would be actually seeing what the board,
Said
whether
was
they
to go.
agreed to, like, for instance, there is going to be a change, at least I'm assuming it will get finalized, but they're changing the way each of the committees are going to get funded, and each committee gets $5,000 of budget allocated to them, which is a bit different than what we've had in the past. So this would be a time where in the first quarter, we could actually review what was in the 2018 budget.
Yep.
So this is actually probably a good thing. That way we're all fairly,
so we may want to make this a little more detailed so we don't go through this.
Every
What is
single
it
time.
every time? Yeah.
So you can say, review the approved 2018 budget from the board or whatever, just as a,
That's sort of that's an OSAC budget. I wouldn't confuse it with an open space budget.
right.
yeah.
But there hasn't really been a OSAC budget in the past, but we've always recommended some funds in other budget areas that we could use, like the COSA conference was in an education
So,
line
yeah,
item.
that's why this is, if you're gonna include it, make sure it's well worded.
Right.
Because an open space budget, I think, is the $6 million of open space monies you have available. But I wouldn't call it a budget, I would call that a fund. So,
So, yeah, review 2018 budget lines applicable to OSAC.
Right.
and I would say a review approved 2018 budget lines. Applicable, yeah, that's good.
Okay.
And it's town budget lines we're talking?
Yeah. Do we need town in there or
I would put it in there.
review the approved?
In the past, it's review open space funding budget and parameters. And then, for example, I just pulled up 2015 and it was the starting balance for 2014, including remaining bond proceeds and sales tax revenues, was 5.36 million, you know, and it goes on. So that's what that line specifically is sometime around May is when I get those totals from finance, and then I just go over them with the group.
So if we,
Let's make sure to add that.
well, so if we make it more broad here, we actually have those totals in the budget. Because the budget will actually have what the fund balance is, won't it?
It has the fund balance, but that isn't a budget line. It is, this is two distinct things. This is the 12 grand. thing.
Right.
Wasn't that the placeholder for each of the advisory committees that the board put in the 2018 budget? So
So I think the intent is to keep it as broad as possible, just so that the committee is as aware of fund balances, of the budget lines, of everything. So by adding budget lines and fund balances applicable to OSAC. Okay. All right. Assess existing and potential trails, review trail design / funding, and make recommendations to the board for 2017 construction. This was added around the time of our
This was the
expedited
ex-
trail plan. Yeah.
So the,
I don't think we are making recommendations in 2018. It hasn't been something we've,
done in the past, that was a,
we're not really contemplating it. I don't think we've said let's embark on another expedited trail plan.
Correct. We would have made that recommendation when we were reviewing the 5-year trail plan.
yeah, we didn't do that.
And we didn't do that. So.
Yeah. So drop this.
Yep.
I would, if you're going to, I would put it down with reviewing the 5-year trail plan, which I hope we rename to annual trail plan instead of 5-year, which is ridiculous.
So, what do we have?
Second
Yeah, so I guess
quarter,
the-
discuss update. B, 3B, you moved it down to second quarter.
Meet with pro staff there, yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, sorry, yep.
So do
I
we
would
need?
move that down. I would agree with Sean, like, I feel like that would be moved down and either before or even be part of that meet with pro staff, like, that's, I guess, where we would discuss that we're not gonna do anything for 2018 because nobody made any recommendations for 2018, but is it something that either committee would look to asking for 2019?
So maybe.
So, like, so I don't know that it's really, I mean, I think it's something we would decide then in that quarter with them, like, we might, as things settle out, we might say, oh, is there additional monies at this time that we would say to the board, you know,
So maybe
like,
add.
things aren't moving in these arenas, like, do you want to look again at doing some type of,
So add this as like a C. On
Yes.
The pro
yeah,
staff?
as a
Yep.
C,
Okay.
I wouldn't, yeah. I think it's, you have the discussion then to figure out if you're gonna do something, in the new budget year, but we didn't, to Sean's point, we didn't do anything
Control
in this
A.
budget.
Yeah, it wasn't working.
Control X.
All right. We can drop that.
The tract H is done,
Yep.
so that can come out, though I guess, when are they doing tract A, does anybody know? Is
Tract
tract
A.
A is not part, isn't the same as tract H, it's not part of the buffer, right? So we wouldn't even be involved in that. Tract A, isn't that the
Yeah,
connection to
that was
H?
part of
Okay.
Discovery.
That's coming across.
I don't know what that's called, actually.
I mean, can we just leave it and see what happens, see what comes up? Maybe it's not even in the first quarter, but it would be ongoing because we don't know when it'll come up.
The tract A.
Yeah.
Yeah, but H is done.
Yeah,
as far
this
as-
is done.
This one's done, I'm just,
Well, in Tract H, so maybe we just not
Yeah, I like
specifically
that.
say buffer in Tract H, and we make it more general to downtown Superior, open space and trail.
well, I think we want to stay out of the trail. That would be my, I think then if we say trail, we're potentially going on to their work. H was because it was part of the buffer and it's considered the open space of over there.
True. The only thing I'm thinking about is,
And I don't know what A falls on, what A is going to fall under and how.
Would you want here the Coal Creek corridor rather than downtown Superior open space? We do make recommendations related to
Coal Creek corridor, yeah.
Coal Creek corridor in downtown Superior.
That's probably what that is.
Mhm.
Should this just be an ongoing item instead of Q1?
yeah, that makes a lot more sense, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
I mean, we had it up in Q1 because Tract H was specifically being addressed in Q1 last year.
Yep.
I mean, if it's something we certainly want to address if it comes up in Q1, but we don't know that there's going to be anything in Q1 that we actually will do with this.
right. So it'll be an ongoing, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So move it to just an ongoing.
That was a huge ongoing list.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, do it again. Screw it, let's just do this.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. Drop this. Determine steps to update the open space acquisition targets and create a plan. That was a this year thing.
We're almost, we might finish it in Q1, hopefully
Yeah, I
sooner,
think,
but.
Yeah, I think the hope is to have it done this year, right? I
That's
mean,
yeah, I think so.
Well, we want
It's
to
gonna be
present to
close,
the
but-
board.
So we
can.
should put that to be reviewed, the updated.
I
list,
thi-
right? Yes, we've
No,
done
I
it.
think we should say we want to present it to the board in Q1.
Okay. All right.
I'm tired of messing around. At some point, we just got to put a stake in the ground and be done with it.
Okay,
So
so
I
we want
think-
to, we want to present Ryan's lovely work.
Well,
Remember, we have until October next year. We have very limited time to get stuff done at this point before we know if we're going to exist. So we really only have 3 quarters before we really know if we have a 4th quarter to look at.
So present the final, updated?
What are
Yeah.
you calling it? Does it have a formal name?
it's open space summary report and recommendations.
Space. Summary, report, and recommendations.
Okay.
All right, present the final updated open space summary report to the board, right?
Board of Trustees.
Create and finalize an open space and trails continuity document.
I mean, that's ongoing.
Yeah, that's an
ongoing
ongoing.
and it's done. I mean, you've created it, now
Yeah.
It's just
updating-
maintenance.
It's
yeah,
maintenance
just
of it.
maintenance, Yeah, when anything comes up. So it's just maintain.
But that should also go down to the
Yeah.
ongoing.
Is that what it's officially called, too?
You might want to change the word "and" to "the," maintain "the."
Yep. The open space trails.
I mean, that really is a trails continuity document. It's not an open space.
Did we add anything to that? Okay.
It's only trails in that document.
And if that's the actual title, Trails Continuity Document, or
That's
Trails
what
Continuity,
We
or...
just call it, yeah, I forget what we call it. Let's tell you shortly.
Just capitalize off for now.
And that has not been presented to the board, right? At some point, we
So-
want to present that to the board, though, right?
Well, no, I thought that was more of a ongoing history for all members and new members, so that folks wouldn't keep bringing back up the same thing and not know why something.
And where are we going to keep it? Where are we going to archive it?
It's on my computer.
So that's...
I want to talk, yeah.
And he
But I
has.
think I want to talk about that in this whole context anyway, so. We call it the OSAC continuity document, but we should probably, I don't think it should be specific to OSAC. I think we should call it the Trails continuity document.
Okay.
Because we also talked about sharing with pros.
How about Town of
so-
Superior Trails Continuity Document?
Is it all trails?
Mhm.
It's all the trails that have been reviewed in the 5-year trails plan over the past several years.
Interior?
Yes, all.
And, yeah, exterior, even ones that Boulder County have said.
Everything,
We won't
everything
go,
that we
yeah.
reviewed, yeah. And the ones that we continue to review.
ProStack's aware this document
Mhm.
exists?
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, they've never asked to see it. I don't know if we specifically shared it with them, maybe once, but it's certainly not a secret document.
Right.
But we can add that as something to share with them. The purpose is we were going over the same, like, so, for example, anything that goes over what's going to be the grasslands, in the grasslands maintenance section, Boulder County won't touch.
Everything.
So it's not worth putting on the list because they won't touch it until they make their, so
Right.
we've been trying to keep this, and Ryan's done a great job of keeping it up, so that you're not, sort of indicating that, oh yeah, that could happen anytime soon, because it's not happening anytime soon, so it's not worth
So should we
adding
add
it
it?
on and burning one of our things.
Should we specifically add it to the discussion on the pro stack?
Yeah.
Document review and archiving.
Yeah.
You put all this work into it, I'm just worried it's just going to get lost and no one's going to know it's there except for us.
Well, but
And
that's one of my items I want to talk about in the new work plan. It's just archiving in general and how we do that.
in general.
Okay. So moving back up.
Do you mind under 9 capitalizing the open space summary report and recommendations?
Oh, yep. Thank you.
Since it's the title.
All right. ask board for schedule to remove Shan Shan structure.
That's done, that was
It is
last year.
done, but do we want to have something on there for
I
Shan
think,
Shan?
I think we need to say ask board for direction on the Shan Shan trailhead.
And
That's-
timeline. I mean, that's,
timeline.
it-
Direction and timeline of the Shan Shan trailhead project.
I mean, if we're looking at 2 years, yeah.
I look at that as being one that we could discuss at the dinner.
That would
that we
definitely be a
have.
dinner conversation.
You know, and then say, are you guys looking for movement on the, because you got to kind of figure out when do we think it's going to happen, and then backtrack from there. What are the milestones you have to hit to make, if someone's saying, well, we'd like it to open in 2020, what would you have to do to make it open in 2020, or, we weren't thinking of opening that, having something there till 2025. Well, that makes it,
Mhm.
a big difference in how much effort we're going to put into it. And I think we need to get direction from the board on that.
Okay, so anything to add to this then?
Are we getting into that now, or why don't we just review what we have first?
Okay,
And then we'll get
let's-
into
all right, let's do that.
archiving and my list of 14
You
things.
want to fix the spelling on trailhead.
Oh, yep.
Excel doesn't have spell check, right?
No.
In Excel, it doesn't come on until you officially, it's
Yeah.
not like the rest of them, which is showing you.
All
What you're
right,
doing.
so develop 2018 budget recommendations.
That's still, it's still 2019.
Right. And I feel like we should add another column or a C here for projects, whether a recommendation for the Shan Shan project to be done in 2019 or something like that.
Yeah.
So for instance, like when ProStack gets to this past year, for instance, they recommended the construction of an embankment slide. So it's actually projects they want to move forward with.
Yeah.
So, for projects under consideration,
Yeah.
just projects?
Yeah, just part of-
Okay. Okay. Host National Trails Day event on or near June 4th. I think we can
We just have to look at the time, yeah.
let's see, June
June
3rd, Sunday.
It would be 3rd, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
If it's the first Sunday.
2018. All right. Revisit previously identified open space acquisition priorities in conjunction with open space priorities for Boulder and Broomfield counties. Try and remember exactly what this related to.
I mean, we submit a list of priorities for Boulder County, right?
We
Is that
do.
maybe-
The only reason we put Broomfield
That's
in
what
there
this
is
one
actually
is.
Jefferson County. It's not Broomfield County. We need to change that to Jefferson because they own the other part of, CenturyLink.
Isn't that weird? When you look at the map and you see that little
It's cut
sliver and Boulder's
right in
on the
half.
other side. I had to triple check that.
Yeah, I saw that.
So this is just something for us to, I guess, check back in with staff and be like,
Yes.
hey, any movement on
Yes.
level 3 or anything else like that?
Yep.
Okay. I think that's a good
Oh,
time to
that's
do
the
it.
second one, yeah. That's the
Annual
next one.
update of, so I agree, calling it the 5-year trails plan doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know why we call it that.
Should we just call it expedited? Oh, wait, but
Just,
this is for Boulder.
For the 5-year and recommendation for
Oh,
we got them
okay,
together.
okay.
So Allison, I know, is the 5-year trails plan a very specific document and we need to call it the
What's
that
the history?
that you guys,
behind that.
it's been called the 5-year trails plan since before I joined.
Yeah, it's
the
always been
committee.
called the 5-year trail plan.
Well, let me check on the name, the exact name for the.
Because I'm guessing they were saying that these are the trails that we plan to implement in the next 5 years, period.
Exactly.
Right, that would make the most sense, as opposed to, let's revisit the same trails every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, maybe right now, Alice looking, we'll just delete 5-year and just say trails plan and recommendation for BOCO.
So this one it's called the Annual Open Space Trail and GIS Request, is the name of the request from Boulder County.
That's for Boulder,
So-
but the 5-year trail plan, it was a Superior document.
Yeah, what about for
Correct.
Superior?
Well,
It-
the 5-year trails plan was just that plan that was from the town advisory.
That spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is basically the spreadsheet.
But I think it was basically the basic need for that was this annual open space trail and GIS request.
Yep.
So really, there's no reason for us to keep calling it the 5-year trails plan. We can just call it the trails plan.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Provided that
ProStack also
ProStack and
agrees.
staff agrees that, it's
Yeah.
always been called the 5-year, I don't know why, but.
It's interesting because going into the trails plan, it's all fed into that GIS request.
Which, yeah, has
Which
no.
ProStack and OSAC
Yeah.
is a
Mhm.
part of.
All right, well, let's just call it trails plan for now, and we'll see if anybody.
And then
Can we add a
as,
comment or annotate that anywhere in case
Yeah,
that comes back?
previously 5-year trail. Yeah,
Previously known as 5-year trails plan.
yeah.
It's also kind of like a budget document as well.
Yeah.
Like to guide
Mm-hmm.
if there's any funding for trails.
5 to 7 year trails?
What does ProStack call it in their draft work plan?
It's
I would suggest both of you use the same language. Because this is the document you both review, right?
they call it the 5-year trails plan too, but they do it for the same reason we do, just that it's always been called that.
So we should set the trend and present it to them and say, this
Well,
is.
let's agree with ProStack on the name.
So what I told Peter is that what we would do is send this to them afterwards so they could look at it and make adjustments. I think this is something we've been fairly consistent with ProStack in that this process is too complicated right now. We don't need to go through a gigantic trails ranking. All of it can be simplified.
Well, this is that plan is just emblematic of the overlap between the two committees, right? So if we're trying to simplify that overlap, tackle this one. Who does what, and when, where, why?
So if there's anything that I don't think the committees will ever agree on is where this one should land, because to be honest, I don't see a lot of these trails being constructed without open space funds. So I don't see why we would ever want that to be outside of our purview.
Right.
I don't ever see ProStack saying, oh yeah, OSAC should be weighing in on all of the interior trails. I mean, this is just one that inherently falls under both categories. I
Well,
believe.
yes and no. So we can put a definition of what we should have as our jurisdiction and what they potentially could have as theirs. We could say all regional trails, interconnecting regional trails, and natural open space trails are in our jurisdiction, and all interior paved park trails are within their jurisdiction, so that we are only ranking ours and they are ranking theirs unless there is some small overlap between trails.
The part of the issue, though, I will just say, is what we've tried to do is present to the board what are the top 10 between, and it falls, like, I think in this one, if we separate out, we end up actually creating more work for the board, because we've kind of come together and say, you want this interior trail, we think this one's good, and we came up with the top, we ranked them all together and came up pretty close. I think if we go back and say, well, we're only going to rank the ones that are regional and on top of the thing, the board's then going to get 10 regional in this, and then they're going to get
No, we
10.
put the plan together still. It'd still be one plan. I mean, there's still going to be a lot of communication.
Because all of our weighted would be like if we have 10 different
You're gonna end up with two different
sets,
Yeah.
rankings, a pro stack.
they
rankings.
would, the
Yeah.
rankings would be different because we wouldn't weigh in on the same thing. I'm fine if we want to do that, but the board would just have to realize we would then come
Yeah.
with two very
Yeah.
separate
Yep.
lists, and then you would have to go through and say, well, we're only
Yeah.
going to do
Well,
10, and we have to narrow
I don't
the
know what
20.
direction Mark has been giving you, so I don't want to frustrate this, but I certainly was a person who moved your two committees to collaborate on these things, because I think collaboration between the two committees is good. So in that meeting with a capital M, it appeared some folks were frustrated with the overlap. And I think it is relevant to say on this one, there has to be overlap, because I do think what you said is very true,
Yeah.
Trish.
Yeah, if we
that-
don't have the overlap, you're just going to get two lists of 10 and then say, well,
And,
what are we
okay,
gonna
board,
pick?
you decide, right?
Yeah,
Right.
or say, well,
Right.
we'll one,
So-
two, and I think we
Yeah.
did a really good job last year of.
Right. So maybe this
Each of us
just,
compromising
again,
the
is
committee.
collaborate
Well-
with ProStack.
And this is a good one that we've been refining our collaboration. We
Right.
discussed last year how we can simplify this process. For 2018, we're not going to all go through it again. What we had decided as leader in our leadership meeting was that we will throw up on the board last year's recommendation and say, do we want to make changes?
Yeah.
Right.
Rather than re-rank everything again like we do every single year.
Yeah.
So why don't we collaborate with Parks and Rec behind the scenes without the board's involvement and come up with a joint consensus so it doesn't affect staff or the board and make it much more simple?
A consensus on the 5-year trail.
Are we going to
or
make
on the
any
trail
changes?
plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Well, that's
Absolutely.
You mean
what
That
was-
was the plan.
ProStack, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is that the 5-year trails plan is the holistic trails plan for the town. And then for the recommendation, it may not be in exactly with the same things in the same order, because if they're regional versus interior, that we don't want to use, like Patricia said, one of the silver bullets on a small interior trail when there may be a larger regional trail that would provide connectivity. That
Right,
the
and
group
and
was
we're
looking
still
for.
have them delineated. It's an update to the trails plan and a recommendation for BOCO, so it's still,
Yeah. And we have it on the list to, I think, collaborate with
yeah.
ProStack. And if we want, when we get to the part of moving it up, we can put that one above, and say either, or however we want to do it, like we meet first and then do that, or leadership meets first and then comes back to their committees and says, this is what we're doing. But we are definitely trying to streamline it, that we all don't have to keep voting on the same trails
Over and
every
over.
year.
Over and over.
I mean, if it really is.
Especially
like-
when we don't build anything.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go back and discuss this 5-year,
Yeah.
because I thought where that got the name was because it's not just 2018, it's 2019, 2020, 21, 22.
So when I joined Elisa, I know when Trish was on it, that spreadsheet used to actually have years that these things would get built.
And
Right.
then
But-
that was taken out from budget.
Because
saying
we
don't-
never built them in those years, and then all the prices that were in there
It
were
became-
wrong
yeah,
as
I
well.
remember.
So
Yeah.
then we said, this doesn't make any sense. Let's just add rankings to them, and if there's money to actually do
Build
this,
them.
But it feels naked to call it the trails plan. Is it the long-term trails? Is it a short-term? Is it a long-term? What is it?
It's both. I
yeah,
think
it's the comprehensive trails plan.
It's the
Is it a plan
comprehensive-
or is it a vision?
It's the ranking of trails. If we could,
If
we
you have
could
monies,
build
this
them
is how you would
today,
build
this
them.
is the ranking.
So that's the vision,
Yeah, that's the vision.
because you just had that big fat if.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah.
there's money, and we've built, they've built some, we built,
So maybe included in your,
yeah.
we built.
your
they built
joint
eight.
meeting with
It's just
ProStack
not
is
always-
debate over what to call this document.
Yeah,
What do you call it? Because the word trails plan means it's something we're going to do, right? It's a plan.
Well, the 5-year trails plan would also have the same indication,
But
but,
at
we've
least
never
those
done it.
words, 5-year, gave you a clue that it's not all happening now.
yeah.
And when you lose those and
Or
it says
ever.
the trails plan, you're like,
I'm expecting,
I wouldn't use 5-year though, because that's not realistic either.
I think you should just call it the
Present and future trail
Town of
vision.
Superior Trails
Plan and vision, plan and
Yeah.
vision.
And then you can go, I mean, you can have it be indicated that it's a multi-year plan, but I don't know that you have.
I also don't have problem calling it a planning document.
Yeah.
That word plan sort of troubles me a little bit.
The trails planning document?
But this has to be agreed upon, because the fact is, if something historically has a name and you change it, then the reference point to the past becomes uncertain.
So, as much as I hate trying to push this out a year, maybe what we do is stick with the name 5-year trail plan and then just have it be discussed with ProStack.
Right.
And we come together for 2019 and say we stop calling this the 5-year trails plan.
Yeah, that's fine.
Does that work for everybody?
Great, yeah.
All right. So,
Arbor Day stays the same.
yep. Arbor Day's there, meet with ProStack.
We've got those
So we've been
down.
adding things. I'm sure we can add more. Have presence at Chili Fest and 4th of July. I'm sure that'll stay. Discuss potential wildlife enhancement and encouragement opportunities. So we're working on that, and I'm guessing, I know Boulder County's swamped right now. So, Allison, based off what you and Patrick have heard, is that something that we should add back up into like the first quarter? Because that's when we are expecting to get more information from them, or what we had asked for is guidance or a presentation from them on what we can do.
Yeah, and then we were looking to put, if, sort of like they had done wildflowers up in Longmont, like handing out wildflower, like we had looked at whatever they tell us is good, we could maybe have something at National Trails Day that would encourage that. So if it was like
Yeah. So it's definitely something we want to have.
packets or packets about how to, I don't know, whatever they tell us.
So it sounds like
Are we talking about like the Hodgson Harris?
nope.
Okay, so we're talking about like
So-
the dock and everything that was discussed like 6 months ago as an enhancement, like viewing deck.
No.
No, we're talking
boardwalk?
about like if you, so like the Boy Scouts planted milkweed, which is gonna bring in butterflies, which is gonna bring in whatever eats the butterflies.
Yeah.
Whatever, or whatever, so we're looking, so this in particular is about,
When this came up a few months ago, it was one of the meetings where Patrick was here. We had discussed we don't necessarily have the expertise here to know exactly what to do for wildlife enhancement and encouragement opportunities. However, that was right after Boulder County had just come and met with the town board and had said, we've got this great staff. If you guys ever have questions or need resources, we're here to help you. So we said, great, we would love to use some of those resources. Let's request some help and guidance on this topic specifically. And I believe Patrick had passed that request.
Well, there was the
on.
fair, or is this like regarding?
This-
the
this
fair?
relates to the fair.
So this is
Okay.
like, that's what they're doing. They're introducing the ferret, which is if they introduce the ferret, it's gonna encourage wildlife to
Yeah.
Right.
that area. So
And we
that's
do
one of our
have Boulder
tenants.
County that we've set up with National Trails Day. So like if there was something, if that was something you wanted them to specifically engage the residents with,
I don't think
we
that's-
could ask them.
I don't think that's what it is, though. We're looking for for help guide us on whether it's a program or an activity. Yeah, that
Yeah.
we can do and we can initiate as a committee. So if they say, if you guys create some type of program where you go out and do this giant planting, it will have.
It will encourage the, bald eagles to nest
So
in
how
this
do you
area,
have
or
this
it will.
conversation? Does the biologist, the Hodgson Harris, the conversation with the commissioners, it just emerged that, we have a biologist, we're happy to offer his assistance, right? So what are the steps here?
I
Would the
think we had
steps-
literally asked
You
to
would
have-
want to have a meeting with the biologist?
To have somebody come in here and
present
talk to
to
us
you?
about it.
Yeah,
About-
say what are the things that we
Yeah.
could encourage as an open space committee that would
So-
encourage
Yeah.
wildlife
So this then
enhancement
becomes something
and-
with a project name, meaning embark on wildlife enhancement project. With first step, meet with Boulder County biologists or GISTs to discuss potential opportunities or what, something like that. So.
But I agree with you, Ken, that it should go up in the first quarter.
Yeah, for
Because we want to
sure.
hit that so that anything we could, any information we get, we could bring to National Trails Day. So if it was like, oh,
Right.
you should plant X plantings and,
But it shouldn't just be wildlife then, because I'm sure she's talking about nature.
well, it's,
Flora and fauna enhancement.
Yeah.
They're saying it's separate.
wildlife. So it should be wildlife, but part of it's that to encourage the wildlife to,
It then brings wildlife.
but part of this was also that we didn't want to necessarily encourage the wrong wildlife to start saying, hey, this is great. You know.
Or maybe it is just your item is meet with Boulder County.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yep,
Biologist
yep, to discuss.
to discuss potential augmentation of wildlife.
I don't know if they're going to send
Superior,
us the
or
biologist.
Flora and fauna,
or some
whatever you
staff.
want to call it.
Staff, yeah.
Yeah.
You could put in parens, like, example biologist or something, but.
Okay, so is this what we wanted? Or do we want to change it
Yeah.
a little bit? We're
No,
good there?
That's good.
Okay. All right, so that gets us through the second quarter.
Yeah.
What happened to the clerk?
Oh, man, we lost some stuff from the third quarter when I was doing some pasting earlier.
I'm good. We'll
So,
take the third quarter off.
third
I like it.
quarter was actually.
I could tell you what
What-
it was.
Yeah, what was number one?
It was have presence at COSA conference. Have presence at July 4th and Chili Fest events. And then discuss potential wildlife enhancement and encouragement opportunities.
So we've moved that one up, so.
All right, so that is our third quarter right there. Very good. All right. Fourth quarter, review the open space management plan to incorporate any new acquisitions. So that's what that's the summary document.
Should we call it that?
Yes. What is it exactly? An open space summary report.
Is this just needing to edit the document?
I think it would just be to see if it needed an update.
If we,
Yeah.
yeah, if there are any acquisitions.
So it should say review/update open space summary report. And I don't know if you have to say new acquisitions or to incorporate any changes, because that would cover acquisitions, that would cover any edits.
Yeah, so I think that's a slippery slope that we want to be careful on. If we just say changes, we could be doing serious edits to this
Okay.
every
alright.
year because we're putting in development statuses.
Okay, so
for
just
these
say-
properties.
alright.
I mean, we could do that
It
if we
needs to be
want.
for major, somehow to capture major changes or.
I should be honest, fourth quarter, I'll have termed out, so you guys should be like, hey, you stop giving us work, Tricia.
I just think new acquisitions is fine, Ken. I think
All
that's
right.
the time to do it.
All right, let's leave that as is then.
Yeah, and then evaluate 2018.
Yep.
Unless that changed in the budget process, we're still kind of responsible for coming up with some of that list with you, Allison, and Ashley, right?
Until the budget is finalized, if there's any changes.
Okay, yeah.
But we're going to do that tonight.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we've been involved in trying to come up with interesting things for that, so.
Okay. So that gets us to our gigantic ongoing section. So, continue to work with town board and staff to acquire high priority open space.
That remains,
That's-
yeah.
Continue to monitor and provide input on the downtown Superior development and other town developments. So,
So
that
here I
is
think this is one of the ones that people think we might be overstepping our bounds. So I think we have to be very clear that continue to monitor and provide input on any open space code or coded open space requirements.
Can't we just use the one that's the second to the last there? It's the same thing.
except we
Well,
have
it's
the
just
and
for
other
other,
developments.
I mean, we can, or you can
Oh,
put that and other, like, part of this is just, you know, if it's coded, if the zoning is supposed to be 30% open space, that's all we should be commenting on about a plan.
I'm not so sure about that though, because let's for an example talk about, we'll use Anderson as an example. So we've
Yeah.
got this tract H buffer that is a great wildlife corridor that if it extends through Anderson, it then basically creates this great corridor from the Hodgson Harris Reservoir all the way up to the open space to the west. So, I mean, in my view, it would be within our purview to look at it and say, right now you have, if we could somehow maintain this corridor. I mean, who knows what it would look like when they bring it forth for their formal application, but I mean, I've got to think that maintaining that corridor is something our group would be interested in and that we'd want to provide comment on. And would be outside of, did you get your 30% or 35 or whatever it is, open space requirement. I mean, that's why I feel like a lot of this stuff is slippery slope. I mean, there's a lot of times where people think that we're going beyond,
Could you
but there's.
maybe bridge this a little bit, continue to monitor and provide input on the open space considerations? Would that fall in that? That is an open
Yeah,
space
yeah.
consideration.
Yeah. And what I would even propose is, let's just drop the whole downtown Superior development and just say town developments.
Yep.
Related to town developments.
Yep. And I don't know, Sandy, you can tell us if you think it should be in there, is if you want to put after considerations, that's the kind of thing, like, you know, wildlife migration patterns, or, you know, what you would, like, would you guys know what that means? Okay.
I think so. And plus, the problem is when you give specifics, then you limit.
Yeah.
And
I
you
know,
don't-
but
you-
my concern is when we don't have specifics and then we make a comment that someone feels was not in our purview, then we're dealing with the other side of the coin, which is you shouldn't be talking about X.
Well, but
Well, no, but
the
I mean-
onus is on you to make it clear why you are opining.
Okay.
And so what Ken's example just said is somebody might think that is an interior trail connection, when in fact you consider it part of an open space migration pattern. So when you opine, you say the reason we are opining is because we consider this an open space migration pattern.
Okay.
So,
Which is what we would do. I mean, that's part
Right.
of the recommendation. We would say if we're going to opine, we're not going to just say we think
Right.
the building should be
Yeah.
X color. We would say.
Well, I just wanted to be clear, because we got into commenting on a lot of development per the request of some board members said they wanted, all committees to opine, and that seems to be part of where we've been directed that we were overstepping bounds. And I just want to be
Well,
clear on that for people
Yeah.
who come on the committee and, you know.
I really have to apologize for this this nebulous target, because I want to make clear that you did precisely what you were asked to do. And the fact some people are confused by it, well, guess what? That's part of the process, right? So,
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, why do our advisory committees exist? It is to give the board input and recommendations on very specific realms of interest. For us, it's open space. So any type of guidance or recommendations I feel like we can give to the board is, I mean, we can throw it in there into the work plan. If the board says, no, now you guys are starting to stray, then by all means, they tell us that and we drop it, but.
I'm going to ask you to clarify, too, the word developments can be loosely connoted to mean any development, anything that happens in the town, right?
Construction development.
You're using it
Oh.
in terms of like final development plans or anything. So I would say related
Development
to.
plans.
Final development.
I would say related to development plans presented to the town.
So take out town before development.
That makes it clear you're talking about.
Yep. So can we drop this then? Because I feel like that's wrapped up into what we just wrote.
Yeah, for now.
Develop next steps and recommendations for Shan open space.
I think that we can take that out of the ongoing, get direction in the first quarter,
And move
and then add those activities to the preceding quarters, or
Just
I
move
guess
forward
I
with
would
those.
ask you, Allison, if we don't have it on the work plan, like, I think once we get direction from the board in January that, I asked board for direction and timeline on the Shan Trailhead.
And move forward.
And develop, next steps, or not, and develop, and document next steps or whatever would
So
cover
maybe
us.
ask
That
board-
if you say, yes, we want something in 2020, someone could start working on it then, but I don't think, if it's
I
not
think
gonna
what you
be-
just said.
So ask board for direction, timeline, and next steps on the Shan Trailhead.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and how much input we have on that, because we have had none. We've had no input on the trailhead so far. We've had nothing.
That's
Yeah,
not
it
true.
is. We've seen plans, and we haven't had any discussion
Yeah, but
around.
Sean, the fact is, take credit where credit's due. It wouldn't have happened without OSAC.
Well, we helped buy it, but.
This committee recommend buying it
Yeah.
and has driven this message for the last 3 or 4 years that it will become, that the desire is to see it become a trailhead. And you should be very proud that that's actually caught on, and now you've got a lot of people agreeing with you, so.
And I still think we're driving
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Is that
And
how
amounts were
ProStack sees
spent
it?
to develop
Yeah.
the concepts that you
Yeah,
we
looked
saw
at
and
to
commented,
comment on.
yeah, so.
No,
No, but I just think it should come out of ongoing and just be part of this, and if, like I said, when
So-
we talked with Patrick before, and even this, whatever, like, we have to know from the board when they're conceiving that something would be open, and then work backwards from that date.
And it would show in the budget, once the budget's approved, there would be specific line items for these projects. And
Yeah.
Right.
that's, when the box is checked.
Right.
Yeah. So does adding and
Yeah.
next steps meet what we're looking for then?
I think so, yeah, because then I think that's just saying to the board, if you do that, then we will continue to work on this throughout the year.
Right.
We don't have to add everything into so we kind of came up with this super long ongoing list.
Okay. So, monitor Hodgson Harris Reservoir rehabilitation. I mean, we're literally asking for a study on that. I feel like this just stays
Yeah,
there.
that should just stay there.
Continue to pursue regional collaboration with other open space committees. I mean, that didn't work out this year, but not for lack of trying.
Yep.
So,
Didn't that work out? What happened?
We couldn't
Brook-
get, Broomfield
Brookfield
was like,
wasn't
yes,
interested?
and then they went into the ether.
Well,
And they've had a lot of interesting
Louisville
things
was
happening.
Yes, and then their agenda is filled up, and they ended up needing to meet with Lafayette.
Because they were
And,
buying that big acquisition together.
So other things kind of took
Yeah.
precedence for the other.
But I think that stays.
yeah, I think it's a good practice. naming trails in open space. This is again one of those things that's been talked about since I joined the committee that we've never ever done anything on.
I think that that's another one, to Sandy's point, that we either get direction from the board in the first, like, is this a project we can take on? And if it's not one we take on this year, then it gets discussed in January of 2019. Is this a project that, you know, we would take on, renaming of, like, some of the blank open spaces or things that.
I think this needs to be fleshed out if you're serious about it. What isn't named that should be named? What's unnamed?
So Shan Shan is just named Shan Shan, like that, we think that should probably be renamed.
And our trails don't
Don't-
really have names.
And is that, the trails, is that related maybe to the wayfinding also?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like that might be
Yeah,
a way to
that's-
consolidate that with ProStack.
So add it up to ProStack and say.
I would
So
like-
all of the
I would
names on the
add-
open space have kind of have remained what the last person who owned it before the town of Superior bought it. So our thought with this was, should there be a project at some time that these would be really renamed into, or not? Like maybe people like that they.
Under the banner of the dinner with the town board, why can't you be fleshing out areas of discussion? And this would be one. Should trails, should open space and trails be renamed, right? So that's one area you want to discuss with them. That's probably where you could also discuss Shan Shan next steps,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So put it in the context of that meeting, and it can all be accomplished, right?
Yeah.
And it also serves as the agenda,
Yep.
rather than keeping them discrete items.
Yep.
And then you don't have to make the agenda in a few months.
Plus,
Yeah,
once you
exactly,
have,
right, it'll
once
be
you have
done
the
now.
meeting, you can
Yep.
chalk off 3 or 4 items.
Right, we could put our X's and we're done.
But that will be a, you know, if that's an approved project, that's a
But
big project.
at that
yeah.
meeting, I think you've gotta be prepared to say, such as, should we keep calling Shan 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 Shan? Or
Right.
should we call that, and propose, you know, you might be thinking of a name that you might want to propose for it that's more appropriate than Shan Shan.
Well, it was discussed, last time we really talked about it, was discussed actually going to the historical commission and talking to them about names and that sort of thing, and actually making this relate back to the town's history. Or one of the things that Tracy saw at COSA was that you can actually reach out to the younger members and see if this would be
Yeah,
good.
and not just the younger, the whole community,
Whole
which I
community.
think would be a very appropriate question for the board. Can we do a community outreach program related to Shan Shan, not just naming, but design
Yeah.
of the entire trailhead, as opposed to just getting some design put in front of us at a meeting that we have to decide about? Could there be a collaborative
Mhm.
community experience with it, which I think would be a lot more meaningful for everyone in the town?
Mhm.
And I think that also comes to, like, when we talked about it, it was like, you know, how they named Wildflower Park and how they named Founders Park. And, you know, like I said, a lot of the open space areas have just remained, people just refer to them as whoever owned it last.
Yeah, but for good reason, because it also captures the history of the
Well,
community.
no, that's true, and it might be that that's what we want to do, and we want to stay
Yeah.
with that, or it
Or
might
not,
be
yeah,
that
I
you
get
wanna do
it,
something
but
different.
Tracy just spurred a thought on that dinner, and it said, next steps on Shan Shan.
Including.
You could have a subcategory underneath it saying
Community engagement.
possible community collaboration on design.
Well, and keep in mind that the design concepts are just the starting point. It's not anything set in stone. It's
No, of
just like,
course.
hey, here's what can be done.
I do get that, but I
Give
don't
us
want
more ideas or
people's
to
time,
change it.
energy, and money when we could take it a different route at the beginning. You know what I mean? I mean, it's great to have that, but that was also someone who created that, and I know that didn't cost us money, as that was my understanding, but they could have done a concept for something else that would have saved us that energy.
Well, it's also what is even feasible. Like if
Sure.
we don't do any design concept, we don't even know that it could be put there. Anything could be put there. So that's like such a.
Who does it?
Whoever.
Is it our staff or Boulder County or?
No,
who does
it would be a private.
So
company.
Was it
that was
made-
Oxbow, right?
Yeah, it was Oxbow for this, but it's more about, it's such a starting point of can anything even be put on this because of the grading or what's underneath it or, so it's such a small starting point that you can go from there into any direction.
Okay. So I've got naming trails and open space part of the discussion in the first quarter. Delete it from ongoing?
Yes.
Okay. All right, continue to provide input on all open space and trail related topics. This was the catch-all for anything that popped up throughout the
Talking
year.
about generic
I think you can
generics.
delete it, because that
Wow.
is fundamental.
What's the point?
You know, I don't
That's
think
our
it's
charter,
a
yeah.
to-do item.
Yeah. Continue to provide input on all proposed spending from the town's open space fund.
Gotta have it.
I'm in favor of keeping that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, so I think this is also where there's a fundamental disagreement between, I mean, I've heard Trustee Dozell talk about it, I heard Patrick talk about it at the budget meetings, how in their minds, the only thing OSAC is supposed to comment on was the bond issuance, because that was where we were specifically cited. I think that's crazy, because we are literally the open space committee. There is a open space tax that goes into this open space fund. It, in my mind, even if we weren't specifically mentioned in the language that created that tax, why on earth would we not be commenting on it? So I still say, I know there's opposition to this even being in there, but I think it's crazy if we don't have it in there.
I agree with you, but I'm one trustee.
Yeah.
The fact is, if there had never been bond or tax money and no language surrounding each, this is such a mammoth expenditure by the town that we would seek community input on it anyway. So I agree with what you said. And so keep it in here, and it will possibly engender some interesting conversation.
Does anybody have problems with keeping this in? Okay. Continue to monitor board activities and provide input as needed. I mean, again, this was just a catch-all one that anything the board talked about that might make sense for us to comment on. Because
I think this is good. I mean, it reminds me to look at the agendas and watch the meetings, and I mean, it does change what I do as a member, so.
I mean, I think this would include all the conversations about OSAC and ProStac mergers and that sort of thing. I mean, I'm in favor of keeping that in there. Develop marketing strategy to publicize Superior's trails and links to regional trails. We haven't really done anything on this. Staff?
Well,
is-
I would say, you know, we haven't done anything official, but this is what we do when we go out to July 4th and Chili Fest and Arbor Day and all those things. That's, you know, we talk a lot to people about the open space, the trails that connect, do all of that. I mean, this, when it came here, I think part of it was, I think this falls under that whole area of, does the town want to do a wayfinding project? Does the town want to do, you know, and if that happens, like. that
How
would be
about
more
wording, though,
official.
that said, continue to promote Superior's trails and links to regional?
Yeah, we could do that. That's a better way of, because this was originally, I think, around the wayfinding, but you go out and do that.
Okay. Continue to monitor and provide
Yeah,
input.
that's gonna stay there.
Yep. Participate in and support the trail maintenance program.
Is that, what is that even? I mean, I don't recall being involved in this. I mean, it's marked as done, but what does that mean?
I think Pro Stack. I think some of our members helped Pro Stack and the Coyote Ridge trail maintenance and building water bars and doing volunteer work. I think that's why it was initially.
Oh, okay, actually getting out and
Yeah.
And
being
doing
involved,
that.
being, oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
last
okay.
year,
Yeah,
I can't remember if it was
yeah,
last year or
okay.
the year before, my boys and I got involved in doing
Yeah,
the
the bike
bike
bar.
pack.
Yep,
And,
okay.
you know, I mean, that's just sort of, I think,
I
Maybe
mean,
I think that
volunteer
falls,
program.
yeah, I think
Maybe
it
put
falls under us
volunteer in
being
there.
out, you know, doing
Trail
In
maintenance
front of the-
volunteer.
as part of the
We
committee.
didn't really do that as part of OSAC.
I was gonna say that,
was all
this might be one of those that,
private citizen.
is this, we didn't create an event to do it. There,
No,
we as
but
individual.
Joel
Yeah.
thought about, he wanted to, so I don't know, so this would be something to ask him. But I think, again, it could come off or stay, but I think one of the things, like, we had talked about was, do we try to do some things on the open space areas that would be maintenance, that folks have participated in Boulder County things, they participated in town maintenance of trails.
So instead of saying participate and support the trail maintenance program, how about any town-related trail maintenance program?
So, did you say again, town?
Any town-related voluntary trail maintenance
Yeah, I think
program.
volunteer or voluntary needs to be in there.
So, volunteer trail maintenance programs or events?
Trail
or-
maintenance, period.
Yeah, trail maintenance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I would say voluntary trail maintenance.
Participate in and support any, participate in and support any town-related voluntary trail maintenance.
Maybe voluntary
Close
is,
enough. I mean, if the town has a project, I think we'd want to be involved.
or
So I-
or volunteer event, town-related trail maintenance volunteer event or something like that.
So I guess my question is, so ProStack does put on an actual event. Like they did Coyote Ridge this year where they got out and they led some maintenance effort. That's clearly something on their work plan that
Yeah.
they do. I'm not sure this is something that belongs on our work plan if it's not something we're hosting or anything like that. I mean, we as individuals can do it. I'm having a hard time understanding what we as OSAC are doing with this.
When it went on last year, like I said, I think Joel was looking to potentially run a program. I don't know that he has the he obviously didn't have the bandwidth to do it this year. I don't know if the bandwidth.
Well, he's not
to be-
here tonight, so let's just take it off then.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think take it off.
Let's not talk about it
and-
anymore. Just
Yeah.
move on.
That works. At some point, there's going to be a wayfinding project.
Yeah.
We've been saying it for years. I heard the planning commission talk about it again not too long ago. I say it stays, even though it might not happen again.
Yeah,
That's done.
that's
Or
done.
That's
now.
almost done.
We could drop it.
Because we're not gonna do it next. Well,
Well, and we
you
had
have the edit,
presenting-
we have
Yeah,
the
yeah,
review
yeah.
and edit, or
Yeah.
review and update.
Provide input on potential off-leash dog areas. This was a hot topic last year, but died down incredibly this year. Do we remove it?
I think we want to put, again, this starts getting to my list of stuff. Further dog cleanup education program, new signs, new media, short videos, that kind of thing. I don't know. That's a. It ties in with the, what do we call it? The dog poop. What?
I can't remember what it was.
The
The Great, the Great American.
Yeah.
Do-gooders.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could we make it in a quarter and make it a project? Is that something that would be?
I tend to agree if it's ongoing.
Did you
it's easy
see
to skip
the
it.
commercial? Did everybody watch the commercial?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Good, you saw that? We handed out, I still have, speaking of, I still have a box of dog bags.
Dog bone bags.
Dog bone bags, so, just, you know, we can hold it until Trails Day, or we can
Next
do it
swag.
our, you know, whatever, but we have it, or, however it gets maintained.
And the commercial was also shown before the HOA movie night.
All right, did make it in. Good.
There's another HOA meeting coming up. It would behoove us to have it shown again.
Next
It's
week.
next week.
16th.
Put it on a running loop at casino night.
Huh?
You can have it going as a running loop at casino night.
That already happened.
Oh, really?
Did it happen already?
Yeah, casino night already happened.
Oh, man.
Welcome to new parenthood.
All right, so, yeah.
4 months later, yeah.
I would like to make it a project, but that's just one of the elements that I'm interested in.
So that was, so maybe we drop it from here, and when we go to things we want to add,
Yeah.
Perfect.
okay, dropped.
This is one where, on the dog issue, it seems on interior trails that most naturally probably fits with ProStack, right?
Yeah,
The
but
issue is not the issue is if anybody wants to make an off-leash area, it's going to be on open space. Like
And-
that's what they float, right? Coyote Ridge. They
Right.
float.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem area was Coyote Ridge, which I would argue is
Yeah,
the
that's true.
naturalized open space area.
Are you talking off-leash stuff, Sandy, or cleanup stuff? Or both?
Both are problems
Well,
there.
frankly, I'm disappointed that we've had this 2-year or 3-year problem now with off-leash dogs. And I fully understand the need, but for off-leash areas. But meanwhile, we have a code that says you keep your dog on a leash. And so I think we need to err on the side of, we don't have off-leash, we enforce on-leash.
Bless you.
So it's been such a tough issue.
Yeah.
We've just
And
done nothing on it. And
the guidance that, there was one point in time where we talked to ProSac about it and talked about whether we wanted to try to move forward with something. And ultimately what the decision was is we have not been given formal direction from the board to
Right.
actually tackle this problem.
there's not been the political will at the board level to tackle this one.
Right.
Plain and simple. And I would probably put that on the agenda for the meeting with the board and say
Dog education project?
appetite for dog-related,
Issues, to address dog-related
Yeah.
issues.
Or dog.
something, yeah.
projects,
I think you need, I do think it needs to become front and center.
And I hear what you're saying. I think you were starting to say about that it is more interior. And I get that, but I see so much of it on open space trails.
Mhm.
It is horrific out there. So
Right.
I think it's both of us,
Yeah.
you know, unfortunately.
Right, yes, that
And
clearly.
it's both ways. It's
Yeah.
people not picking up, people putting
It's
dog
both
off leash.
elements.
Well,
or
and-
oddly enough, people putting it in a bag and then leaving the
Leaving the
bag.
I don't
Like-
actually
like they
mind,
think
I don't
that-
mind that, but I know a lot of people mind it. My
As long- if-
attitude is
If they pick it up.
If they
if
come
your
back and
dog
get it.
does something at the beginning of a hike, no problem leaving it there, just pick it up on your way out. But I know other people have a different attitude towards that.
We had a
But-
gentleman who stopped at National Trails Day because he knew we were handing out the things and came back and said, I just picked up 15 bags off of the trail.
Right, right.
I
You
did
know, like-
become a little more sympathetic at COSA when I went to a presentation on dog education. And one of the things they said about that is why people leave it. They think someone does come and pick it up. They think
Right.
it's not their job. And I was like, wow, okay, it makes me a little more.
It's sort of like those
compassionate, but-
orange bags of debris on the highway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
They leave them, and
Yes.
somebody comes and actually picks them up.
Yes.
Yeah, so I
Maybe
think
they're,
in some
people are,
respect, people have
I
this
think
idea-
people are making excuses if they say, I think somebody else is
That's
going
what
to
I
pick up.
thought too, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
Anyway,
but you pick it
education
up
is needed.
at, Autry Park, like somebody goes
Could-
and cleans that, right? So
This sounds like we could have a whole
Well,
meeting on this.
typically-
We have a lot to get through.
Typically, no, but if it's so out of control that there are complaints in a specific park, then we have to hire the
Then it's
company and spend, you know.
And
X-
then there are those silly biodegradable
Yeah.
things, doggy do bags, whatever they are, and that collection place at the dog park.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
have it listed as something to discuss with the board. Desire to address dog-related issues.
Board's desire. That's not your desire, right?
Okay, so we have now gotten through everything. Maintain Superior Trail continuity document. Potential items, budget recommendations, potentially expedited maintenance of OSAC, identified open space areas. I don't think there's anything that we want to add there. Expedited 2019. So we just want to keep that
Yep.
Yeah.
down at the bottom. All right. So, things people want to add. Sean, I know you got a list. Do you want to kick us off?
Oh, boy. Yeah, so I know we covered a lot, but I still need to go through everything I have just to make sure that we have covered everything, or at least in my mind, we've covered everything. So I had Shan Shan Trailhead Design and Development, and for details, I had historic elements and design and information placards, bear with me. Parking requirements, original town access requirements, amenities. I mean, I went into great detail about things we need to look at and consider, and this kind of falls into the timeline of when based on board recommendations, when do we do these things per quarter over the next 4 quarters?
So I think we wouldn't add those until we have that, and then we would ask for an amended, work plan and add newer items in if they said that we could work on it this year.
But if you don't put them down here,
I would like to put them down personally,
Right.
just so we
You've
have, for
gotta-
example,
you've got to archive them so that at the dinner on the agenda,
Then
you
I-
have those specific things listed.
So I wouldn't put them in there,
So,
Ken, I would just, down at the bottom.
I just don't want to lose them at the
Bottom
bottom
where?
is the problem.
bottom, like all the way
It's a
down
very
here,
long bottom.
or- I mean, if we,
Why don't we
if,
summarize them? Shan Shan, colon.
Okay. Or put it under the,
so I mean, we've already got like a sub-bullet for Shan Shan for community collaboration on design, naming, etc. We
take out the
could,
et cetera and just put in the stuff you just named.
Yeah, so,
what do we want that to be part of community collaboration, or?
No.
Right,
Because
so.
it's evaluation of
Yeah.
other elements, not community collaboration.
Okay.
Showing my list, so no one else write them down?
if you want me to. Okay, so we got historic elements and design and information placards. So like all the railroad stuff that's down at the current trailhead, we might want to move up to our trailhead.
I
Okay.
feel like that needs to be a separate one, because that could include working with the historical committee, and if
Mhm.
the board is on the same page with us doing that.
I think it's summarized with the 2 words, historic elements.
Okay. No, I just didn't want
Yeah.
everything else run on behind
Yeah.
that one.
So you're saying drop that, or leave?
no.
Okay,
No,
okay,
leave
okay.
that, make a
No, no.
new line,
Yes,
CC.
thank you, sorry, I should have been clearer.
Gotcha. So this is gonna get very long
It-
in a second. I was gonna have
well,
all of
that's-
this on one line.
Right, I don't think that's something we want to do.
Keep it on one line or go long?
I don't, one line, which would make it go long. So I don't know how we'd want to.
So what are the next ones, Sean, then we can.
All right, I'll just list them off. And some of these, they're already kind of covered, but we're still reviewing them. Parking requirements, right? We're looking at these 2 different designs, one up high, one down low, or both. How much parking do we want to have there? Original town access requirements. We've talked about a frontage road. If we have that Tract H wildlife corridor, how's the wildlife going to get from Tract H across McCaslin over to Shan Shan, which is really where they're crossing over to? We have no wildlife crossing area there. Amenities, just how much are we going to have? Electricity, running water, shelter. We know we're going to. Are all those going to be at the shelter and stuff? Do you know?
It's up for
debate.
discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there going to be an area for food trucks, that kind of thing?
What could that be called?
I just called it amenities.
Yeah, I think just
Yeah.
I just said amenities.
amenities.
We already talked about timeline. Renaming, which is what we had talked about previously, renaming, collaboration with the historic committee or getting the community outreach stuff on that. And then, yeah, community outreach. So those were the things I had
Okay.
listed just for Shan Shan.
Okay.
Okay.
I got those.
And those could be in any quarter. The next thing I had on my list was evaluation of trail realignment along Coal Creek, so downtown to Rogers Farm to the new trailhead. Will I need to solicit BOCO input? I don't know if we have to get developer input or not. And then the timeline of all that.
So can you give a summary to everybody so that everyone knows what you're talking about when you say realignment?
All right, so right now we have we have the trail along Coal Creek, and it goes under the bridge, comes up a ramp over by Town Hall, over the bridge, and then down up the sidewalk, and then goes down to the Shan Shan trailhead. I was thinking that with all the new downtown development going on, do we want to have the trail cross over onto the south side of Coal Creek instead of going on the north side and having to cross over at McCaslin, going on the south side and then going underneath the bridge there, so you don't have to go around a ramp by Town Hall, cross over McCaslin, and go back down. So there's that aspect. Yeah. So thank you. Where is it? Coal Creek Trail. Yeah. So right there, and I think Patrick had mentioned at our volunteer event there had been some discussion about changing the trail how it ramps up over by the Town Hall. I don't.
Well, there was also like some old plans with Boulder County on how it would come along McCaslin and over the bridge.
Right, and I was thinking that if we're gonna, again, if we're incorporating in this, what did Rita call it? This tapestry. I love that word. This tapestry of how everything fits together. So if we're fitting the Coal Creek with the Rogers Farm into the new trailhead out to open space, how can we realign that so that we don't have to go up onto McCaslin? Can we do it on the south side and go through, make it a little more user friendly and less, yeah. So that's what I was referring to.
That somewhat goes along with advising on developments in the town, right? We can't just do that without Rogers.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Rogers
We need the developer input and BOCO because we co-own this property with Boulder County, the trailhead.
Yeah, but not where you want this trail to go. Where the trail will go is on Rogers.
I think, don't they have some input on the trails though, because it's a regional trail that goes through Boulder County open space? I don't know.
Well, yeah, but that's why I don't think there's a trail over here, is because Boulder County doesn't own anything over here, which is why it does the funky stuff that it does.
Right, but so that's where we would need to get involvement with the developer because we
Yeah.
would ultimately we'd love to have that river walk continue going along Coal Creek, right? Or the trail, and then eventually wind its way up and through and over to our trailhead and where it
Somewhat
exists.
incorporated in advising in town developments. I mean, is it?
I want to call it out.
You want to make sure it doesn't fall.
I want to make our work plan as detailed and specific as possible.
The problem is, it may not, I mean, where do you put it? It may not even come to fruition next year, so.
I mean, it almost.
So it almost seems like that's another agenda item to discuss with the board.
I agree.
And then if there's not appetite for that, for realigning of that trail, then it has to drop for a year and you have to keep that on
Right.
the continuity document that says, when this comes back up or goes forward.
I'd rather have too much on our work plan than not enough and have it come back to bite
it
us.
seems
I don't know.
It seems
I don't agree.
premature to have the word realignment
Or-
on there.
Why?
It seems like you really want to raise the question about basically studying the sort of the maximal potential.
Well, I say
alignment.
evaluation of trail realignment along Coal Creek, evaluation being the key
Why
word.
get rid of the word realignment? Because you're already answering the question you're asking. So why don't you just say evaluation of,
Trail connectivity.
trail whatever along Coal Creek. Town trail system along Coal Creek. And
So the question is this,
if you evaluate it and then you come to the conclusion that it would best be realigned, that is a recommendation you make after the evaluation. Or have you guys as a whole decided it needs to be realigned? Am I missing something?
This is the first time it's coming up.
Okay, so.
It's come up before, though. I remember
It has,
Patrick
but we
talking
needed
about
to
it.
talk, it has to be put on the work plan, I think.
I frankly can't tell you one way or the other if it's advisable. I'd have to get out there now that you mentioned it and walk it and think about this. And so it can be an action item that you guys undertake next year to evaluate the Coal Creek-related trail system and make recommendations if as necessary or something like that. So that's actually something you undertake anew
Yep.
and then opine on it to the board and make recommendations.
I will say this feels like, though, if we're going to opine on that we should inform ProStack that we want to opine on that and give them the same opportunity to do so, because I think it will cross over, the number of places it crosses over can start to feel like we're,
I mean, it's a trail, so ProStack's going to feel.
yeah, well, they should have
Yeah.
input on it. It's a trail,
Yeah.
it should, so
It's a regional trail, though, so it goes in both our.
yeah, I get confused at the regional trails, though, because sometimes they jump off into interiors and they, they do all kinds of.
To me, it's a good faith thing to.
Yeah.
So, it sounds, Sean, I'm just throwing in third quarters, it sounds like this isn't something you want an ongoing, and third quarter is very light. And things
Let's
work
put it in
out.
third quarter. As long as
So-
you guys agree. I'm just throwing these out there. I had a whole bunch of thoughts and.
Yeah, I don't know if I think our strategy to be throw as much as we can on the work plan to look like we're doing a lot. I fundamentally disagree with making things complicated. I think it's going to make me not want to work on this committee if we have so much that it's stressful for another purpose of making a point to the board. I pretty strongly feel that's a mistake. So I guess,
I'd work on it.
well, you work on that, but if we're going to just, every idea that we have, we throw it on here and we've got 100 lines because we're trying to make it look busy.
But again, it depends on the developer's timeline. If the developer isn't going to be
No, I'm talking in general
Developing.
about your comment about saying we need to have
So I think
as
the issue.
or as specific of a work plan.
I was advised by certain people that we should try to make things as clear as possible and detailed as possible in our work plan. Period. That is what I was advised.
So it goes sort of two ways, because one, you can, if you don't put it on the work plan, we can always get the pushback that that's not on your work plan, don't talk about it. Versus, how much leeway do you have in the 12 months for new ideas to come up and be discussed and be talked about? Like, I think that's where the
Well-
fallout is. And I will say, from my perspective, is if we don't have it on the work plan and it's contentious, we get our hands slapped.
Well, that's the thing,
Like,
right?
if it's not on the work plan, but people agree with it, they're like, that's a great idea and you should do it. But so I understand your,
Yeah,
your thought process of why to say put it on, because it, that's where if some people don't agree with what, our thoughts on something, they can say, well, you didn't put it on the work plan, so it's off the purview and you can't discuss it and you can't do
So,
anything.
I feel like we have this very, very fine line that we need to
Yep.
straddle appropriately, because I am kind of more towards the vein of what Ryan's saying, where we've got a lot that we do. This year we had a really big project that dominated a lot of our time with getting the open space summary report
Yep.
updated. If we take on one or two big projects that thread themselves throughout our meetings throughout the whole year, that that takes up a ton of time because we have all these other things that we have to also hit along the way. Now, if we're gonna have Shan Shan being one of our big projects that we truly want to try to get done and take on, I mean, I don't know if that's going to be possible, but it sounds like that's the desire of this committee. I think we need to be very careful with what we add and whether we really think we're going to get it done. And I think it's a lot easier if we put something in an ongoing section for it to not get done. But if we put something into like the third quarter or the second quarter, wherever, and actually put a timeline to it, that should get done. We try pretty darn hard, and we actually track whether or not we get done what we say we're going to get done throughout the year. I mean, the ongoing stuff, that really is just, we'd like to get this done, but who knows whether it's really going to happen or not.
I've been on various committees, and I'd sort of challenge you to go about this another way in 2018 when you're doing this for 2019. And the question is, don't pull up the old years, okay? And start from there. Instead, start with the discussion of what are the areas of focus you want to have to make a difference for this town in the upcoming year. And identify several initiatives that you can all sink your teeth into. And if those are accomplished by year's end, OSAC will have had an influence on the town, right? Et cetera. And then at the end, go through and make sure you throw in the ones that are continuing from the previous year.
So it's not too late to have that conversation. I mean, we haven't finished
so
this yet. I mean,
what do you want your impact to be at the end of 2018?
So
this should get you there.
So that, to that point, this doesn't go to the board until January, right?
right.
So we have another
Yep.
meeting. So do we want to continue discussing all of the, like, do we want to step back and try to do Sandy's approach? And if we do that, I suggest we sort of step back and do that approach, like save this as a draft and do that approach in our December meeting, and everybody come with those thoughts, right?
I think what we can do right now is, I mean, Sean clearly has thoughts
I've got mine.
already.
I'm done.
I've got some thoughts that I've pulled together also. We could just go through it right now to set the tone, but then finish that conversation.
Yeah, just because I'm saying it doesn't mean we need to add them.
Okay,
That's
so I'm not
all
going to
saying.
add any of this. This is just to percolate.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. I mean, so let's see, where was it? Yeah, so we already talked about reach out to Jefferson County regarding open space in Southern Superior and specifically CenturyLink. And then more specifically, I said explore funding opportunities because we started that discussion, but we didn't get too far on that for another property we had been discussing at the time that won't be named. And then the other thing was getting an updated status on the land from now CenturyLink, who we now, does that throw that land property into turmoil again as to what its status is it ever going to be ours or not? Next, I had provide guidelines of OSAC versus PROSPAC, responsibilities, input recommendations to help eliminate overlap in work plans. And I guess we had considered things in the past like, again, this is like rehashing old discussions, consider renaming our committee. What are the dividing lines of responsibilities so that there's obviously always going to be gray areas.
Do we want to discuss any of this as we're going through it, or this is just
No, we look at the time. No. And then I had evaluation of land use for Town 15 parcel. That I guess everyone has an idea. Different, whoever you ask, they all have like, oh, I'd like to see this on it. I want to see that on it. And I'm saying we should, as an open space committee, maybe provide some input. We've already suggested an equestrian center on, and I'm sure there are other ideas we can come up with. And then break, once we have our recommendations, come up with a plan of how we want to present it to the board. Next, I had update trail plan to reflect current reality. We've already discussed that, updating a spreadsheet, because the spreadsheet is very complicated as it is. Archiving the trails on that spreadsheet, some of them we don't need on there anymore. Calling it something else other than a 5-year plan. Okay. Next on, I had provide input on downtown Superior and other properties that are potentially up for development, and their intersection with trails and open space requirements via our board liaison. So I guess we would like, in this case, I was trying to say that I'd like to try and leverage our board liaison more than we have been when it comes up for some of these development plans, Zaharias, Anderson, whatever. Instead of it just trying to do more through our liaison than getting staff involved, because there's just one extra step that they have to be involved. I don't know if that's realistic or not, but.
Tell me what you mean.
Like what work are we having staff do?
You're talking about your staff liaison or your board liaison?
Board.
And what do you have in mind?
Well, let's see. What did I have in mind? This was a couple weeks ago when I did this.
Well, I heard you just say status on properties. Was that one of them, or was that?
Yeah, I guess we always seem to be caught unaware sometimes. It feels like our committee has been caught unaware about updates on what's happening, and I don't know if the board sometimes knows more than we do. I don't know if you guys get that same feeling when it comes to properties that are being discussed.
But Sean, are you referring to asking the board liaison to keep you better apprised of what's happening?
Yeah, in part.
And asking staff to keep you better apprised? Or are you asking that your staff, your board liaison, keep the board better apprised of what you are doing? Which direction are you thinking?
Kind of both.
Okay, right.
Kind of both. In my opinion, it doesn't feel like we've always had the most current information in a timely fashion. That's it.
Just a quick question, but that's why one of the items on there was that members were going to, have their certain pet projects and pay attention to the different Boulder County things and.
Right, but again, there's sometimes staff and board members know more than we do, and we can find out about it at the meeting, but it'd be nice to get a heads up of it before those meetings happen.
Well, where
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with you is that in the past, and you've been on this board now a long time, Sean, things that should have come before the Open Space Committee didn't necessarily come here.
Right.
And so you were sort of caught unawares. I think that has dramatically improved over time. When I became liaison in, God knows, I can't remember, 4 years or 5 years ago, there was a huge change on the committee with half the committee stepping off and new people and all that kind of stuff. And it was all thrown into limbo. And I believe the situation now is a lot better, and it's probably not perfect. So I'm sure there's still frustration there. But I think that simply just mentioning it here, Allison's going to be better about it. And I'd suggest you can just have a conversation with your regular trustee liaison and I'm sure he'd be very happy to oblige. It's certainly not intentional.
I know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean,
Right.
I know what,
Right.
staff is heavily burdened.
I will reiterate that the best thing that's happened here in terms of the leadership of the Open Space Committee is that the chair now appears in front of the board at virtually every meeting and keeps us apprised, and that's very important.
But that won't be happening anymore because now it has to be scheduled as a presentation rather than making any statements during public comment. That was what I took.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that
I didn't
was.
pick up on that.
I mean, it's sort of, we can go as community members
Yeah.
and you
Okay.
can, but they, I would agree with you that from the last thing, the board doesn't necessarily want us up there doing our updates.
I'm
Specifically, what I'm recalling is a comment that Trustee Ryan made that kicked a lot of this off, in that he wants to be able to have a dialogue back and forth and ask questions and dig deeper into what we're saying, and he can't do that
Yeah.
during public comment.
So, yeah, I think both can coexist. If what you're doing is simply appearing before the board to give us a report of what you've been up to, fine. If, however, you're wanting to appear in front of the board to get the board's input on something, then it falls into the other category, to where
Okay.
you're made a presentation. So I think they can coexist. Now,
If they can, that's fine. That just
That's-
wasn't the impression I was under.
that's,
but-
I don't know. That's a conversation that probably needs to still be had. I don't want to rewrite everything, the world according to me, but anyway, that is where the board was kept very apprised of what you guys were up to, and I fully appreciated it.
Yeah, it's huge. Thank you.
And I'd like, I'm a supporter of that. So sometimes the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater.
All right, Rocky Mountain Greenway construction location input, specifically outreach and education on Rocky Flats, potential impact on our open space should that trail get built. So I don't know if we really actually have anything like that, or if we want to have anything like
Well,
that.
we
but-
have monitoring of the Rocky Mountain Flats and Greenway as an ongoing item.
Yeah, that's monitoring. This is actual outreach and education on. This is a more proactive approach as opposed to.
You're talking about like outreach to the community about that
Yes.
this is really happening.
Yes.
Right,
Okay.
heads up, and this could be the health impact. And I know Sandy's been better about it than anybody, and we've had speakers and things related to that, but it would just be nice to consider it.
Yep. At some point, I feel like, I don't know if this is allowable, but at least maybe our committee might want to consider providing feedback to the Northwest sub-area. There's been community input. I don't know if committee input is desired or we want to do that. And then at some point, like we did previously, identify project team leaders for volunteering assignments for this next upcoming work plan, who wants to take on what and what project. Again, evaluating trail wayfinding and animal crossing signs at major intersections. Focus on animal and natural habitat outdoor education programs plus Trails Day. I think we already have that. But I want to be focused more on flora and fauna and not, I don't know. I have an issue with Jeff and Paige. That's just, I'm going to say that. I don't have an issue with them, but I have an issue as being an OSAC program. That's more of a ProStack thing, in my opinion. And then I feel like at some point we should review updates to the Prost master plan that's they're updating, because I think what we're doing is supposed to tie in with theirs, and theirs is supposed to tie in with us, so we need to have some overlap there. And then the dog education was the last thing I had. So that was my...
Who's updating the postmaster plan?
ProStack.
ProStack, I think in particular is
Corey.
Vice Chair Corey Oxen.
I don't know if they have a set timeline on that.
In our section, I mean, they know from our meeting, the leadership with, our section's going to plug in. Like, I don't know that we would comment on anything other We
Yeah,
wouldn't comment
we're-
on anything other than our
We are
section.
kind of a piece of their puzzle rather than the puzzles fitting together, is my understanding of how that works.
We have a section in
Yeah.
that pros plan.
I have a question regarding the leader comment you made. Are you thinking, so we have those few categories right now, like whatever, Rocky Flats, the gold,
Shan, et cetera. Yeah.
But are you thinking, I'm wondering, in reference to Ryan's comment about we don't want to take on 80 million things that we can't get done, would it be an idea to have leaders for other projects? For example, I brought up the dog stuff. Why wouldn't I
Right.
lead something on the dog so everyone else wouldn't have to be burdened with that?
Correct.
And give updates.
But I
Is
think
that an
also to
idea?
Ryan's point is like, it all takes time, right, to discuss all that stuff
For
at
sure.
each meeting. So
Yeah.
you don't want to we don't want to have 4-hour sessions
Yeah.
like tonight's.
Good point.
Feels like.
If it is something that we can tackle though, and there's someone who's passionate about it, I mean, I fully support that idea.
Yeah.
It's
I
just,
think that's worked well this
Yeah.
year, actually,
Yeah.
so I.
what it comes down
we're gonna
to
do more,
is,
I think.
there just needs to be the bandwidth for people to get it done, and there just needs to be a commitment up front to actually
Sure.
do it. I mean, which we've done well this year. I think this is actually the first year I've been on the committee that's actually gone well.
And many things might not even be able to happen anyway. Shan Shan may not pan out this year. It may be 3 years away or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I've got a few things that I had
Yep.
written down. One was just continuing to provide input on development plans, and specifically what I had was at all stages. That was something that came up when we had that big fiasco with the property that must not be named. I was specifically told that committees are not supposed to give input on anything until it hits a final development plan. I still don't see how that makes sense, because at that point you're pretty far down the
Yeah,
road.
it's already locked in.
Yeah, if there's something that comes before the town as a concept plan, I don't see why we wouldn't want to provide input on it to the board on what we think makes sense. That way, if the board agrees, they can provide that
I
input.
think that needs to be FF up there, is clarity on when committees should come.
Oh, that's
not
not-
a-
that's
It's
D.
actually D.
Yeah.
But I think that is a clarity that we need.
No, I meant during the meeting you have with the town. board.
Yeah, the-
Yeah.
FF is
The-
specifically Shan Shan.
Huh?
FF
is-
would be specific to Shan Shan.
This is
Oh, yeah,
just.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
On all
Gotcha.
levels of development plans?
Yeah.
Okay. Another one was open space fund expenditures. I think until we started digging in, I didn't fully, until this year, have a real good grasp of all the smaller expenditures that come out of, A, what the various open space funds, and B, all the expenditures that come out of it. I think, and maybe it was just me, but there was just this picture of, we have this fund, it doesn't get touched until we build a trail that we recommended, or that we buy a property. I think, in my mind, it would make sense to, maybe it's just a single meeting agenda item or something like that, but actually go through what are the recurring expenditures that come from the open space funds, what are the open space funds, just helping the committee truly understand.
But I think we have
The
that.
budget
That's
size.
the review, the approved 2018 budget lines and fund balances.
I don't
Well,
think it ever gets
I don't
reviewed
think
in
it's
detail.
Here's a
Well,
different,
but I think that's where we would
That's
do
maybe
that.
what-
That's
yeah.
the item that we would
Yeah,
do it
and
under.
I'm picturing this to be much more detailed, because I know that
I-
there's.
a proactive committee would actually be involved right now when they're being proposed to be expended in the upcoming year, rather than asking
Yeah.
to review them once they have been expended.
Well, right, but didn't we already miss that opportunity with the budget meetings that already took place?
But, I mean, I think
I
you
mean,
have
it-
every right to see the proposal for how this money will be spent in the upcoming year. And so next year, it might be something you do in arrears, looking back. But it could also
So-
be next year, looking forward to the 2019 budget.
So I have a question for you. The review and see what's coming out of it, I think we can look at. Do you think we have the right to comment?
I
On
certainly
it.
think you have the right to have an opinion on it. Again, I'm one trustee, and I don't mean to overly rabble-rouse, but I firmly believe that this group of people is formed to provide community input on the expenditure of any and all money that has been or will be accumulated for open space purposes. So that's my personal belief. And so who else is doing that on behalf of this community?
Right.
So I guess then, to your point, Ken, we want to review what was approved, but then in the second, or I think it's the third quarter, is we want to comment on
And
the proposed budget, which I think we have, right? Where do we have that?
I think it was up in the second quarter, actually.
We had something about budget there.
Well, the proposed budget always, is the
Developed budget.
end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter. But
So I think we have develop our budget recommendations, and then do you put in the third quarter, review other OSAC,
open space related.
open space funding expenditures proposed in the budget that we didn't, that we weren't involved. Like, that's where it would fall. I don't know if we're gonna do that tonight, but I think that kind of does the three things that you're looking for. One is you review what was approved, and that will be approved by you guys in December, Sandy? Is that when the official budget gets,
I think it may
Liz.
be the second meeting in November.
okay, or whenever that happens, but we want to review it when it's done, just so we know, okay, this is where everything that's been approved. We want to have our own recommendations about what we want to do as a committee around the budget. And then we want to review what the town finance group, or whatever, whoever comes up with those other budget items is pulling from Paul, right? It's Paul's group, I guess, that comes up with the other budget
There's
items.
only really 4 other things besides like the special projects that come out of the open space, and that would be water, maintenance, the COSA $1,000, the open space coordination, which has OSAC's currently this year had OSAC's National Trails Day and helping to pay for our wildlife ecologists outdoor education. And those are the 4 that have stayed
Consistent.
kind of the same and consistent. And then, other things come in, such as we had this year, trail improvements, Coal Creek enhancements, Shan Shan House demo, and
Track
the
H.
exploration of Shan Shan Open Space Trailhead.
And track
That's
page.
it. Well, but what was planned for the year.
Planned for the year.
Yeah.
Right.
So with our budget process last year, and there's really only the 4 other items that
So-
always reoccur.
So I think this is good for now.
Yeah.
We can finalize this at the next meeting, so we don't take too much more time. And then the last thing that I don't have this well defined. I'm not sure it belongs in our purview, but I think it's something the town needs to think about. I mean, I don't know if you guys have been watching what's going on with Broomfield and the other municipalities in regards to the proposed fracking. A lot of that's happening on open space. A lot of it, when I look at, I was doing a lot of research trying to figure out if that's something that could impact us. One of the firms has mineral rights to a lot of areas, either on the border of the town or right within town. I can't tell. It's very vague, so it's hard to tell whether it's Boulder County or actually Superior. I don't know if I don't know what the town's policies are. I don't know if we
Yeah.
have a policy. I don't know if we're prepared for this
I have been
discussion.
assured by town staff, if you look at the geological formation,
I was gonna say, I
that-
asked this at a meeting.
Right.
that as a
The geological
citizen, that
formation,
we don't have anything.
luckily,
Track.
is outside Superior's borders. And so the belief is that it's got a name, and I can't remember the name, the such and such oil field does not lie beneath us. And so the belief is that these issues will not affect us. And I did my own research, and I believe that to be the case. Now, when you can do horizontal fracking and all this kind of stuff, could something be set up here and horizontally frack? I would never say never, but I think this is more an Erie and Boulder County.
So in a
cetera issue.
recent SEC filing from Extraction Oil and Gas, they had a heat map of areas that they are actively pursuing wells in, and it literally hits the exact corner of where we are, and that's part of the DJ Basin.
Like here
Yeah.
at Town Hall.
It's not. I can show you the map. It's not that detailed. It shows the counties, and it shows the corner where Boulder County, Broomfield, Weld, Jefferson all coincide, basically. And they've got blue spots all over the place. Where those blue spots specifically land, I haven't been able to
Right.
tell yet, but it looks like it coincides with us. And
Yeah.
they just bought a company specifically because of their access and rights to the DJ Basin that sits underneath us.
Yeah.
So again, it's probably outside of our purview.
I would just, I'd ask, drop in on Matt Magley and ask him, or have Allison ask. I don't, I don't know. Maybe this is new information. But I have been content that this is one of the headaches that we as a town will not have to fuss with, because it's a major one. I mean, I just had somebody come to my door, pro-fracking. Somebody was going through Superior. And I actually I talked to these people and he was very pro-fracking. And I said, luckily, as an elected leader of this town, I don't have to worry about that issue. So if I do have to worry about it,
She'd like to know.
I certainly want to know, but I don't believe it to be the case. So
Okay.
if you feel like you've got a new map and new whatever,
Well, I find it
just
interesting, he's
forward
got a
it-
new map, and you've got
forward
people
it
who
to
are knocking
that-
on the door.
yeah, forward it to the town board or forward it to Allison, and people can take a look at it.
Okay.
Because Boulder County, again, has staff that knows these things.
Yeah. That's all I had for my.
Want me to go?
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with really any ideas, on board with most things, but the big ones that I had were the Shan Shan and a community outreach and historical commission input on that, which we already put up there, a dog project we already put up there. I would like information on the Superior 15, because I hear rumblings that the town has ideas, that the board has ideas, and that I know ProStack is talking about it a lot, so it would be nice, given that it's one of the properties on our list, to have information on that. And
Are we all good? Just let's throw that on our dinner
Yep,
meeting.
so,
Yeah,
yeah,
10,
Superior
town
15.
great.
Town 15.
Town 15.
Town 15.
And ever since I joined, I've always wanted updates on all of the properties, and I know, Ryan, you've done a ton of work on that, but updates meaning like who's contacting them, at what frequency, who is the individual they contact. I don't know if we are allowed to have that information, but it has always been very curious to me as to what the relationship is, and is anyone working on it, et cetera, et cetera.
And I think the majority of the time, it's always been the town manager that
index.
Okay.
Those types of- Yeah, I've got a feeling you're only, and I think this is defensible, that the individual committees get information on this at the point in which a development plan comes forth. And it is relevant to ask the question that's now on your agenda for the board meeting, is really, do we not get to opine on concept plans or preliminary development plans? We only get to opine on final development plans. I think that deserves to be clarified.
Do you mind if I interject? Maybe I wasn't clear. I'm only curious about acquisition of those properties.
For open space.
Yes.
For open space, she's
Right.
asking who does
So-
the conversation.
Right. So if you believe that any of those properties meet your requirements for open space, you know, you do the open property assessment, et cetera, then you come forth the same way that you did on Shan Shan and propose, based on whatever characteristics and considerations, et cetera, that this be acquired for open space. And that
Right.
that has to emerge as sort of a formal recommendation of the Open Space Committee. What happened with Zaharias was that it got into this weird limbo land
Yeah.
that seemed to coincide with the developer coming forth on that. And you were caught in the crosshairs on that one.
Sure. And I'm not talking about Zaharias, but I'm kind of referencing a lot of what was discussed at COSA, and it's creating relationships with the people who own these properties now.
Right.
And are there other ways that we can discuss and convince those owners to make it open space? Is that by other organizations working with the town to purchase it? Is that, how would their needs be met at this point in time before they have a for sale sign up and I drive by it and say, geez, oh, you know what I mean? There's a lot of things that other areas in the state are doing and being a lot more proactive, and I'm
Right.
wondering if we could do some things.
I would like to have that on that town board meeting agenda as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Typically, that would not be something individual members of a committee would do.
Oh, I
That
would-
would,
yeah, I
that
would
would
want
be
individuals.
more staff-related. And I think it's fair to ask the question, is that being done?
I think we can
be
raise
great.
that, Tracy, that you can, if you can be there at the dinner, or if you can't, let me know, that you can say, you went to COSA, like, so they know, like, you approved for staff, a member to go to COSA. You went and kind of give them the 2-minute rundown that this is what other, other communities in the state are doing, and, we'd like to know how we're cultivating the, but it kind of ties back to the whole thing, you sent me to COSA, and I have information that's relevant to
Could
doing
it be
that.
also just as simple as what Ryan has been working on in the open space summary report with, the way these properties have already been ranked and prioritized through the work that the group has already done, and you've got this list, you've got the document and the resource, and maybe it's as simple as having, putting that forward.
I think there's a misunderstanding, though, about, let's use Zaharias, for instance. Zaharias has been in the top 2 or 3 since before I joined the committee, and it's always been a desired location, but was there ever even an attempt to cultivate that relationship from an open space perspective? I know it's always been expensive, and therefore we've kind of ignored it, and when you look at the comprehensive plan, it said some of it could be open space, but there was other uses otherwise. I think it's to get it all out on the table, to make sure that there's a firm just understanding, and I think it's worth having that discussion.
Where is the potential now to cultivate those relationships?
I don't know those relationships. I don't.
Right.
None of us do. We
So-
have no idea.
Bowl-Jack is that little bit
Yep, Bowl-Jack.
west of
Poultry Lane.
McCaslin?
The seven what are those called, the properties?
76th Street.
76th Street parcels.
Right.
that-
Anderson.
No,
Paul
I mean,
Anderson's in that weird
Yeah.
place.
we have our list of properties,
Yeah.
but I'm saying the relationships. Is that what you're asking,
Right,
Sandy?
relationships.
Yeah, we
It's-
don't know.
it's-
We are always on the outside.
Right.
And I don't
It's,
know if it has to be that
It's a
way.
really intriguing sort of question,
Yeah.
so there you go. You got your whole agenda. We're going to have 3-hour dinner.
Yeah,
All right.
cut that a little.
Sorry for making that long. I wanted it to be short,
Do
but
I
thanks for
need to
listening.
cut back on how I have this written?
Well, I think.
I didn't know how to
we'll
write
have
that.
That's good.
December, yeah,
I think
we-
details are good.
There's no, it's
Well,
not a
there's one
apology,
other.
it's just owners.
There's one other thing that's the owner's relationship, but there's also the funding opportunities, and that's referenced in Ryan's document. We've talked about that very briefly in the past, but there are other ways to fund these properties to make them open space. Would the town entertain that, or does the town want it purely to come out of that open space fund?
Well, that's like how we have purchased the other open spaces, like Shan Shan, for example, as a partnership. It wasn't just the town,
Mhm.
so.
Can
But
we
you're
reach?
talking beyond that.
Right, can we
Yeah.
reach out to other
I
organizations?
don't even know what these creative methods are. I've heard you refer to creative and
Right.
innovative and whatnot, but
Yeah.
I don't even know what they are.
I mean, there's conservation easements, there's a lot of different things that if the owner is willing to sell at basically a discount, they can get other benefits rather than like, so for instance, if there's a Harrius property owner was willing to sell to us at something that we were wanting to pay per acre for open space, which is less than he's currently selling it, the town has the ability to enter into agreements that might lessen the tax burden on the profits that he's
Oh.
making. I mean, there's, I read through a bunch of it, and there's very specific terminology for it that is escaping me at this exact
Mhm.
moment. But it's probably not going to make them as whole as if they sold it on the free market. But if there's somebody who is open space inclined and is willing to work with you, then that's something you can do. I'm sure that was kind of.
And that's just one of them, yeah.
Exactly.
And there's private and public funders who are buying stuff all over the state in areas that I think are far inferior to the properties that we have in this town. And I think that it would be worthy to reach out to people like that, organizations like that, and see if they would be interested in contributing some funds so we may be able to go to an owner and try to entice or propose that. But we can't do any of that, of course, unless we know that the town allows us.
And it's probably
to do
not
that.
even us who are allowed to
For
do
sure.
that because we cannot negotiate on
For
behalf
sure.
of the town. So
Yep.
it's very,
Yeah.
it's something that we've wanted to do that.
Well, I think, again, the dinner is the place to bring that up.
Okay.
Dinner's not going to be long enough. Need 3 dinners.
But the great thing about that is honing in on where the appropriate mechanism for bringing these ideas in front of the board. Because otherwise, they just sit on the list, right? So this is your conversation with the board. And then that is the express purpose of having you get agenda time to come forth with a specific thing that you want board opinion on in the course of the year as well. So it doesn't have to all be accomplished here, but that is, when you want board discussion, the reason to get on the agenda.
Funding up? I don't know how to write this. So we need to add the defining the additional funding.
So to Sandy's point, it might be that we bring it up here and ask if we can come and do a presentation at a February or March
Okay. I'm not-
town board meeting, which would have a lot more detail and allow for conversation back and forth and,
So rather than wordsmith any of this, let's leave it
Mhm.
here and we'll figure out at our next meeting whether we try to get that onto just a presentation.
This should be a many months type of
Yeah.
process. It shouldn't, it's difficult, but it should never be, I can't even imagine it happening in 1 month's meeting that you actually hone this to where it needs to be. So don't feel like this process is painful, so more painful this time than any other time. It should be putting them down and then refining. And to Ryan's point, there is no real benefit to having it overly long, because understand the board gets all of these at the same time, and they're going through them, right? And for the important aspects of this to come to the board's attention, they can't be obscured by, your good points can't be obscured by a lot of mundane things. Otherwise, the cream
So I feel like we need to have
doesn't
two tabs. One things that, as Sandy was saying, highlight the really important things that we want to accomplish this year. Shan Shan Trailhead, those kind of things. And then all the other mundane things, leadership, elections, et cetera, put on another tab, because that's for our own personal checklist of things, right? I think.
No, that's stuff that they want on the work plan
it's-
that has to.
Well, it's still on the work plan, it's just a separate
But
tab.
I know, but if we
You
put
wanna-
on a separate tab, I feel like that,
Well,
again,
so the
points-
work plan-
like we
this-
sort of got tagged that, or I don't want to say we got tagged, but it was clear in the meetings that we've had after things that because there was a lot of stuff on everybody's work plan, they weren't looked at in detail. And then, we said, well, it was on our work plan and you approved it. And then that's where we got into the sort of roundabout thing of, you shouldn't have touched this. Well, it was on our work plan. You looked at our work plan, you accepted it, you did that, and we ended up in this thing. And I
And we're
don't
now
think
at
we
17
want two
in the
tabs
first
to make it
quarter.
look like we're trying to hide anything or make anything overly complex.
So, and also, these aren't the official work plans.
These are drafts.
Well, and they're not even Excel documents is what I'm getting to. The official work plans are Word documents that get spit out, so there isn't a separate tab when it officially goes to the board or anything like that.
Good point.
I mean, we can still highlight things,
Yeah,
but
I think.
But we could also develop more detailed plans for single items. Like the Shan Shan, we've got 5 bullets. That could be a separate worksheet that say, these are the details we care about for Shan Shan, and manage it that way. And then you don't have 6 lines for Shan Shan.
yeah, that's absolutely true.
Again, I just think that should be cleared by the board, knowing that if they're gonna vote on something and approve it and say that it exists, we have to be clear if we're saying, well, you gotta go to this tab to look at all the details under Shan Shan. Just so that they're clear on it.
But I don't think they want those details. They need to look at it at a high level to say this is what we're approving.
Yeah, we need to know those
We
details.
need to know those details. The board doesn't.
I don't know. I would put that to the board to say, what do they want to,
Well, but you just said, though, that they came back at us and said there was too much on there and all the details were hiding the main plans.
We have a
So
board
now we're-
liaison here. Why don't we ask the board liaison?
yeah.
What are you looking for?
I believe it's sufficient to say A. Direction, timeline, and next steps. In your operating documents, you've got to, the AA through EE is somewhere in your workbook. You have a Shan Shan tab, right, in your workbook. And then you have these 5 other elements, and the next 5 you add to it down the road, so that when this emerges as a town priority, you're ready to go, because you've got the 10 or 15 considerations. So, if A comes forth at the dinner and you are told, well, this isn't going to happen for 2 or 3 years, there's no need to go through AA through EE, right?
Yep.
They become moot,
Yep.
right? However, if the board says, you know what, that should rise to the top of the priority list in the next year, what should we be thinking about?
And we have answers. Right?
Then you've got these things, well, and a matter of fact, here are the things that we've thought of already that you should be thinking about. So these are not things that are unimportant. They should be documented somewhere in your working documents so that you can go to them and refer to them quickly. But I'm fine with just having A there and having you guys at the meeting who can respond on your feet to a question. Well, if this were to be a top priority, what should we consider? And then that's part of the discussion. But I don't think it has to be itemized on the work plan. I think the purpose of itemizing them here tonight is because, frankly, I hadn't thought of all of these things. And I'm glad to see them there because they're now on paper here for you to put in the right form. And, you know, are you following me?
Yep.
So, in my opinion, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, your top projects emerge in those things, right? The ongoing is the functioning and the role you perform just as the Open Space Committee. And I don't know that everything has to be itemized as explicitly as you did in terms of here, I think some items can be consolidated into one item when they're now expressed in 2 or 3 lines. But that's the tweaking for next meeting. That doesn't have to be done tonight. So tonight needs to be the laundry list.
Yeah, but I would also ask then from a committee perspective for you, because this is your opinion as our board liaison and actually as a
Your sub-board liaison.
That the other 6 trustees agree with that concept.
Well, and
because that's where we run into that.
Right.
Then we show up and we say, we got direction from our board liaison that this was perfectly fine to discuss, and there's 6 different other trustees who have 6 different other opinions, and then there's also, you know, one of the things we heard this year is the burden that we put on staff. So, you know, you might not want to see this, but Matt may want to know that if we have items A through E, that's going to involve a staff member to help us identify A through E. So I'm just, that's my perspective, that we don't want to come back in, you know, March or April or whatever and have it be said, well, that wasn't on your work plan. You know, Sean clearly heard feedback of everything should be on the work plan to, you know, we're not going to work on that, or you're now burdening staff, or you overstepped and went on this and we didn't see anything with that, and we're standing here going, well, we had conversations about it, we had a meeting that we discussed it, we got feedback that this was fine, and now it's not fine. So that's just my perspective. Just, do you have all yours done?
I'm done. Go ahead.
Yeah, we've covered everything that I want on the list, so I'll hand off to Ryan.
I just have 2. I think that it would be along the funding. I think it would be good for us. I really don't understand all these other options. And I know that if we were going to go do something, we would work with Allison on that. But I think us knowing what the options are and not saying, okay, there's a property, now let's go investigate what these options are, but have almost a playlist ready to go of, okay, it meets these criteria, so it would fit this funding organization. I just think that we know the properties are going to be more expensive. We should have our act together on how we would approach that if something came up. So that's one. Second one is totally different, but I'd like to figure out a way to organize our documents better for the group. You know, I've been working a lot with documents, but every time I need to go find a map, I can't remember what email it was in or if Allison sent the latest. And I know that Allison organizes them on their shared drives, but there's technology out there now where we can put together the latest maps, the latest work plans, the latest documents that we use, and make that available so we always have the latest. So that's one I'd like to work on. So that's it.
So I think what I'd like to ask of everybody is, let's put this into an email.
Okay.
We can start an email chain. Whoever wants to kick it off first, whether I get to it first or somebody else wants to just start the email chain saying, hey, these were the big rock items. Let's get it in front of everyone so everyone can think about it. That way we come prepared to our next meeting to have this conversation with everyone already prepared with their thoughts and opinions and ideas.
And all,
Do you want me to push save right now? Okay. I didn't know if this.
does it auto save?
That's what that's what I was gonna say.
That's so much work.
Okay.
Are you gonna send out
Things I
the
worry
pro
about, I'm
stack
sorry.
No,
draft
that's
with this,
So many times.
or
Yeah, I
no?
can do that.
No,
It's
I
a
don't
good
know.
habit.
Well,
I
no,
know.
let's. So they're gonna.
'Cause I know they drafted theirs, but
They haven't even discussed theirs.
Well,
Yeah.
usually,
Discuss
a
theirs,
lot of
exactly.
times, the work plans will start, like you say, that last month or this month, and then go until December, as things are kind of getting firmed up, and then also being able to look at the approved budget might also help to
Yeah.
guide some of it, the last discussions too.
It was Peter's intention to have their work plan finalized next Wednesday. So if they have a final out, then we'll just grab it and shoot out what their final is rather than what the draft one is. But if they don't finalize, then yeah, I'll share the draft. Just so we're working from the right.
And then, when we're doing this email thread, if there are certain projects that people want to lead, do we want to put that information in
Yeah.
that too? I
Yeah,
think
that's great.
because I don't want Ryan getting stressed that we should all take it on when that's clearly not my intention.
Well, I think the piece about delegation will
Yeah.
make that all, I think it'll make the work plan come together.
Right.
Yeah, if there's something you're passionate about that you throw out there, say I'm passionate about this and would volunteer to be
Yeah.
the leader.
Good. Right.
Okay, so I think we've beat this one to death for the past.
Yeah, I had a feeling it was not going to be from 6:35 to 7. What were you
Just
thinking?
missed it. Ryan, do we want to go through the?
I don't know, do we?
I just
I mean, I've got 30 open items to discuss on this document. This is gonna be an hour-long discussion. So either we go through the big ones and try to make the quick decisions and then try to work through it other ways, or,
I hate to procrastinate, but what's on our next month's agenda?
Will be the end of this.
Yeah, it's
We'll
basically.
be finishing up what we just did, which will hopefully be much, much, much more brief.
And we have to finish this next item, which is Ryan's.
well, this, I mean,
But is
this
there anything
document
else?
doesn't have to be done this year. I mean,
We're
we
not-
said we wanted it
I
to
tried to
be,
get
but
all
I
that
don't know
knocked
if
out
it's
for
the
this.
most,
Awesome.
The
there's
only other
nothing
thing was
pressing to get
the-
it done.
the
I mean, and
other thing on
I'm happy
tonight's-
also just
The what?
making my
Education
own
for tonight.
judgments
Oh,
on
right.
this, and
So
So I
did you
guess
hear-
that's a
So-
question.
It's-
So if Ryan's been working this document the whole time,
Mhm.
are we happy with Ryan making his own judgments on it? And getting presented?
Has anybody seen it besides Ryan?
Oh, yeah,
Ken
we've-
has, everybody has.
Everybody's seen it.
We've all-
Everybody's seen it and given
Provided
feedback,
feedback.
and if they wanted to, and, you know, to your point, like, you're the closest to it.
Yeah, I hear
Yeah.
what you're saying, Trish, and I think we're probably all on board with that. But Ryan, do you have questions that you really want our input on?
yeah, there's a few.
So do you want to hit those and then?
So let's just do this for 20 minutes
Yep.
and then be done. So if
And
you can just,
I don't want to take time away from it though, because it is
No,
really awesome.
I don't think that we'll rush finishing it if we don't have the time for it. I just think
Okay.
that with everything else going on, we can hit some of the big things, we can move it along.
Sure.
I mean, the real big thing is, I am going to need staff time. So Allison, at some point, some of the outstanding issues that I have with these open space requirements, I know you sent me that municipal code. I couldn't translate that. So I don't know if there's somebody that can help me with that. Also getting the status, I mean, maybe what it is I could provide a list of what I need from staff. I guess one of the questions, one of the thoughts is maybe we don't put the open space requirement even on the list. And if we feel that it's not per the municipal code, then we could list something like level 3 had some really weird open space requirement, that there's some agreement that I need help from staff knowing what that agreement was. All the old document says was, with the agreement with level 3, that 80% will be open space plus the remaining, like, it was really vague. And so hopefully we know where there's an agreement. And if not, then I don't know, we'll need to figure that out. But maybe what I can do there is just get a list of where I think I need help. And I've got the week of Thanksgiving off. I could even come in for half a day or an hour, or if that helps move things along, I'm willing to do that. I don't know if that makes it harder, but
Allison's taking that week off too.
oh, okay. Well, or some other day I could come in or whatever. But I can start with the stuff where I know I need staff input. We don't need to go through that.
Right.
Well, really the maintainer of like all of that really specific agreements and codes would be our planner that we have on staff.
Okay.
And maybe just having a list to where different people can look at it and pass it around, and whoever happens to know that tidbit of
Okay.
information or where to find it, we can try to find it.
Okay, so that helps move a lot of these along.
I mean, and as long as it's not super time sensitive, that's great.
I don't think, we'd like to have it done by the end of the year, but like you said, if it isn't, it isn't. We just want to make sure, I think everyone agrees, we'd rather have it done right than on a schedule.
Mm.
So, let's see, so one recommendation that we got, maybe you could just bring up the doc as opposed to the list. I'll go through the list, but in the section where we describe each property, there were a few things that came up that I think are worth discussing. There was one recommendation that where we put keep going down. So like where we have the 2003 Smith Wildlife, actually was recommended to move that above the OSAC recommendations because that's earlier. I don't care. So this is where I would like input.
I'm fine with that change.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
A little bit above.
So that's a good one. We had a couple other people comment about specific language in here. There was language of threat and language of pristine. And what it turned out to be was that in the original matrix of how they evaluated, those were specific items. We changed the criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, for example, it says the majority of this parcel is weedy and not particularly pristine.
And what was the other word you said?
Threat. Development threat
Yeah.
is what it was. I think that sentence, the majority of the parcel is weedy. I think you can almost, I think in all those situations, just removing the words that don't,
Yeah, you can just
that
say it's
didn't
weedy
apply.
and that's done.
yeah, would fix that. So I think I'm gonna just make that change if people
I agree
don't
with that.
object. Because the other one was threat of development, but we've also got this development tab up here that we're gonna fill in that covers really the threat. And so I don't think it needs to be in the observation.
That
I
makes
would
sense.
agree, we have it up there now.
Okay. Let's see, I think that, the 76 parcels, I don't know which map to use. It's the first one.
First one.
So on this map, I have I've seen a bunch of different maps on this. So the one that we normally see just shows the bottom 4 properties.
Mhm.
It doesn't include the top 2.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is different color than the other ones. I guess I would propose using the same color, but using the shape with the upper 2. I just don't see any reason not to include them since they're both Boulder County unincorporated and adjacent.
So I guess that is a question for staff, because in a lot of other maps, they also show just the 4 and not the upper 2, and
I know,
I
and-
don't
and-
know why. I guess we need the history of why aren't those upper 2 included? Because they are contiguous to the lower 4, and is it because those are on 76th Street and those upper 2 are not? That's the only thing I can
Yeah,
think
very
of.
well.
Because
That
it's
could
just the
actually
address.
be- Yeah.
But why wouldn't we want to
But
include
those
them?
are like
Because
the
they
last
are
two that
they
are-
are still part of Superior, as far as I know, the town.
No, they're not annexed.
They're not, they're not, well, I thought the sign said you were leaving Superior and they were still in it, I don't know.
I don't think they're part of the town. I think it's Boulder County unincorporated.
Well, I thought all of them, are the other four are part of
Yeah,
Superior
no,
though?
no, none of
Oh,
them
none
are.
of them are, right.
None of them are.
Right, so.
So,
I see,
Questions for the town?
yeah, I see
Yeah.
moving all six, but.
I
again,
personally like them all.
There's a particular reason why staff is.
Well,
why the town
historically, why we
doesn't want-
didn't.
Yeah. Has there been a reason why?
I've never heard of Soane and Slater, and, you know.
so we need to get more information from the town on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. so
Okay.
I don't know why that's.
Okay.
Did you happen to look at them on the assessor's website?
Yeah.
And what they said or anything?
They were from what I saw from the assessor's website, I didn't see any difference between those two and the lower four.
Okay. I was
So,
just curious.
no, I love that. That's where I really got into that website.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Isn't
It is
it?
Yeah.
awesome.
I know, I'm on there all the time.
Okay. Sean, you had asked.
Oh, boy.
No. It's fine. You had said, oh man, where is your comment here? Oh, Tracy is offered to rework the intro and the summary at the beginning to wordsmith it.
Okay.
So I think that'll be a good change. It just will be a lot cleaner. But Sean, I think your question was, I'm not talking in all the properties, I'm not talking specifically about the evaluation form that we had,
Okay.
right, of all those criteria.
Right.
And your question was, should we be
Oh, right, right.
in there?
Right.
My initial reaction to that is, I don't know if I can remember the history of that discussion. I don't even know if we could actually summarize it. I mean, what we did is I actually went back and listened to our summary and summarized that in the notes.
Okay.
So I actually don't know if we actually have that data.
I don't, that wasn't the way we all presented it that night. It was just everyone went around and gave their observations. The observations all were drawn from that sheet, but I don't think we all went through that sheet. We never submitted
Not
that
specifically,
sheet.
no.
No.
Yeah. So I think keeping it general and high level might be the only way to truly do it, since we didn't actually submit any of it.
Okay. So I guess my last question, and I think this is all I need, is do we want to change level 3 to CenturyLink?
Yes.
Yes, I
Yep.
think we have to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is-
You can put
is
in
it
parens.
officially
It
approved?
It
Yeah.
closed a week ago.
Yes,
So I
November
think-
1st.
Yep.
I think you can, if you want, you could put formally level 3.
Well, I'll
in
put, I have the,
parens.
I have the appendix that
yeah.
talks about the old names and the new names and the transition.
So, yeah. we
I just
can-
have to change maps and other things.
Allison,
But
is
that's
that,
okay.
has that been discussed at the staff level yet about updating other things that might say level 3 in town? Has that been brought up to start
I
changing to
haven't heard
CenturyLink?
anything about
Okay.
that.
Okay. Oh, no, one more. So we talked financially that we said we wanted to put the fund balance at the end of the year, or where we thought the fund balance was and how much we're making each year. Like, we talked about doing all these graphs and everything, then we pulled that back and said, let's just talk about the balance. Yeah, right there, I talk about it. I don't even know. I guess I'm second guessing this anymore.
To even include anything like this?
Yeah.
Well, usually in like I said, in May, finance gives me the update and I relay the update to the committee every year. So it's in our notes every year.
Yeah, and my thought is, let's say we did go spend all of it 2 months later. Now it's pretty out of date, and the town's finances are available, and you can go dig through and find what the balances are. I don't know what purpose it serves.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's the real question. What purpose does it serve? I think it's maybe what's interesting is the amount that comes in each year. I mean, I think that number is fairly interesting, that we would get about $500,000 a year out of the tax. I don't know. I've just struggled with this one because I don't know what purpose it serves in this document.
Do you think maybe it's, you could put traditionally we make about $500,000 and then say, you know, for updated numbers, go look at, you know, whatever, and just leave it at that.
And reference the town financials and.
Yeah, reference the town financials to go looking there, because it's gonna be hard to keep updating it here. You're right, like
And you
the
don't want,
second you do
well, you
it.
don't, we don't want to have to tweak it all the
Exactly.
time.
Hopefully this lasts for
I'm-
the next 5 or 6
Right,
years.
Yeah,
I was for putting all of the financial history and everything in there, so I can't really comment. So I mean, I kind of agree with you that since we don't have all the background and the history, what is the point in one figure at this exact point in time?
yeah. It's immediately out of
Okay,
date.
so yeah, why don't I just make that change?
But you could just say, please go to the financials
And I might just even put that, maybe instead of in the financial section, I might even put this up in the history section that talks about the fund that was established
Yeah.
and that it generates about this, but for fund balances, please go see town financials.
Yeah. That
Okay.
would be the best, is then they go off
Okay.
and, because you could have a year where it's nicely, you know, nice and robust, and you could have a year that it,
Mhm.
you know, goes down quite a bit because of an acquisition, so.
Okay. I think I have enough to do the next pass and then work with town on put an email together for the stuff, Allison, where I'll need some help. And then, you know, if town comes back and says this is really difficult, then maybe we decide to not include that data. I mean, I think that's an okay decision on some of this stuff also. And then I can come back with a much cleaner version and get 20 minutes last time to finalize this, so I think I'm good.
I just want to say again, Ryan, the work you've done on it has
Yeah.
been tremendous.
Oh, well, thanks, I appreciate it. It's been
Yeah.
fun. I've learned a lot.
You're like a documenting machine now.
It's like all over
I
it
just,
now.
well, that's how I learn, right? So I've learned a lot, so it's good.
But you've done a tremendous amount of
Oh,
work.
thanks,
so-
appreciate it.
Okay. Awesome. So,
Awesome.
do we want to not jump into item number 4, and do the outdoor education programming right now? Does everyone still have enough energy to do it?
If we don't have anything on next month.
We can.
Next month, right now, is just going to be, again, finalizing the work plan and going over the changes to the
Which is
report,
plenty.
which is going to be a lot. So
Okay.
if we
I
can
was
knock
gonna
this out.
suggest if we're not gonna knock it out tonight, we put this as the first agenda item.
That's probably a
and
good
knock it-
idea.
And knock it out in the first.
It's pretty easy. It won't
Okay.
take me long to go through it. Next meeting if you want to.
I'm flexible, whatever.
Yeah.
I can
everyone
do
else
it now, if you
Is everyone okay
guys-
doing it now? Should we just
Are
knock
you
it
o-
out?
Allison, have you been here since 7?
It's okay.
All right, let's knock it out.
It's not that much. I'm like, wait, where is this? Okay. So I just kind of keep track of this every year since I started.
Awesome.
And I try to just make sure that Ashley and our group kind of keeps an idea of the participant numbers. Am I in your way? Can move back a little. So we had how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11 different activities this year that Ashley helped with. And you could see these are participant numbers. Our National Trails Day looks kind of wonky only because Ashley counted the people who actually came to the booth. And then also we kind of kept a rough idea of how many people came, you know, just mainly from like Birds of Prey program when the tin is full, kind of giving a quick count. You know, also I try to keep track of like the weather.
Mhm.
So like if this day was 21 degrees and we only had 9 people, well,
Makes
that's
sense.
probably why. And like last year we had 24, so it was still a strong program last year. So this just kind of gives you an overview of, you know, our numbers and what's been going on each year.
And then usually we talk about new ideas, like, we started the bat and coyote night hikes, which last year our coyote had high numbers, and this year it was a little bit lower, but, depending on baseball games or whatever activity was going on, just...
Even how close dens are located that year. Guess how many people are interested in it.
And then one extra enhancement that we did this year was we had a summer camp day for that summer camp that was new this year in a partnership with Impact Sports. And Ashley, we made a Wildlife Explorers workbook for the kiddos and had them come out and do bird observation. We got water out of some of the ponds and microscopes for just invertebrate type study, and we did a hike. We used binoculars for the birds, so we had a lot of interaction with the kids as far as ecology, wildlife, fauna, different water animals. So kind of tried to hit a bunch of different topics on that day. We had 41 kids attend that one, so that was our little extra treat this year. Does anybody have any questions about anything? Or
So it looks like if we were going to make any adjustments, looks like the bug hunt is the one that kind of fell off this year.
But I would have to look at the bug hunt the prior year.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But there weren't any extenuating circumstances this year that would have explained the drop in the bug hunt. I mean, it could just be people have now done the bug hunt.
Yeah, the bug hunt has...
We found all the bugs.
has kind of gone on every year. And it is the same day as Chili Fest. It always has been. But it always has been.
Huh.
So, but there's only so many Saturdays or so many, Friday nights. That's why we started the night hikes, because it kind of opened up a nighttime activity, because there's only so many Saturdays, available in the summer.
Do we have a desire to throw just an open-ended question to Ashley and say, hey, is there a different program that you're interested in that you might want to substitute for something, and see what she comes back with, or give her
And that's
some
what we
flexibility on
usually
that?
do. We usually, I go over this with you guys, and then we talk about any ideas that you have, and then I meet with Ashley, and we always have crazy ideas, and then, we come back to you guys and say, hey, what do you think about this? And so this is kind of our first swing at it here before I meet with her.
Do you keep track of who participates and whether new programs attract different folks? Because if we've got the same people coming to a bunch of these, it's logical that as they add a new one, they may drop an old one, right? So are we adding new people, or are we just offering more programs to the same old group?
Well, and that's a hard thing to determine, because a lot of people don't sign up and they just show up. So, for example, Jeff and Paige concert, only like 34 people signed up, but we know for a fact more than 34 people came.
Right.
But yes, we have a lot of repeat customers. A lot of times for our bird walks, we'll have like the same 6 people will definitely come for like a coyote hike. But then we have a lot of undocumented people also that just don't bother to go through the process of signing up through our website. So we don't have them. We don't capture those. Or if it's a family of like 6 people, maybe only one person signs up.
So can you pass a sign-up sheet at each of these events?
We can. We can
Jeff
try.
and Paige might be a little cumbersome with the rest.
We can try, and a lot of times, well, depending on which one it is, sometimes I'm with Ashley. A lot of times I'm not with her, so it's just her there meeting these groups, getting a lot of questions, and I guess, people are busy,
So I think a lot of it, like, because I made several of them, and several I did not because, you know, my kids are in sports and that, you know, they conflict on the times. I was gonna throw out a suggestion, just, the Boulder, and I don't know if they could work with Ashley or not, but the Boulder, County folks, when we were up doing, Boy Scout camp, they came and did like bears and things like that. So they had bear skins and stuff like that, and talked about, you know, so it might be another one, like, you know, maybe step away from coyotes and go to other animals or things if people can see them or.
Yeah, so like ferrets, I don't think we did anything on prairie dogs.
No.
Because we're in
But they did,
bears,
yeah,
yeah,
so
it'd be
they
good.
had some skulls and, you know, things that they did. So it was I recognized the girl, she was the one that came to National Trails Day, so, because, you know, but we might be able to tap into some others.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I reached out to them to come to National Trails Day to have their booth out there, because
Yeah.
I knew that they had resources, you know, that they could bring to the table for us, especially during that event. Super nice. So do you want Ashley to reach out about other animal presentations, or do you want her to talk, just for me to talk to her about other animal presentations?
Do any of us have any other ideas? I mean,
Well-
we have in past years.
Right.
But do we this year?
I mean, like I said, if we're reintroducing the ferret in the upcoming whatever years, that might be a good one to
Okay.
start discussing about now with everyone in the area,
Yeah.
since it's going to be right out on our open space. I don't know, do we want to talk about prairie dogs? Because they're everywhere, and when I first moved out here, I was fascinated with prairie dogs, but now it's like the pros and cons, what's good about them, what's bad about them, and it's kind of like coyotes, right? It's kind of that predator-prey kind of thing. So what about a predator-prey presentation? Bears, mountain lions, and the relationships of why each is needed, and I don't know.
And there's a lot going on with prairie dogs that I don't think we all realize. I learned some up at COSA talking to neighboring towns as to what they're doing and was a little
You
shocked.
had it
So
right the first time.
I was like, wait.
So I
There's no
think
spell
that's a
check.
good one.
I think another one I've heard from the community is tracks or tracking, looking at animal tracks and trying to identify what the animal is.
She does do that on
She
the
does?
hikes. Definitely. That's always a part of
Okay.
any of her hikes.
Yeah,
She's
it
always
just might
looking
be
for-
more like, we might have to just change the name of the hike, and that might make people go, oh, I'll go. You know, like in an
Yeah.
odd way, like, because,
Right.
I mean, I like the coyote hikes because I think it's important, and there gets a lot of misinformation gets out into the community, so I think it's always a good one to have, because I think she gives us true information, and that helps people go back to their areas and be like, no, that's not really true, you know? I was at, you know, the wildlife ecologist walk, and, you know, that's not true. I was at that one with the 6 on October 6th, it was windy, but,
DA.
Thanks.
I don't know if you guys know, but Community Park
Making
has
me
a
crazy.
pair.
Yep.
And so they have a pair and 2 young, at least 2 young that are over there, so they're very.
Yeah, and staff has also been hazing them, so I have pictures and all kinds of stuff of that. So, and we actually went and did outreach in the parks where that specific family unit was present, and talked to all the dog walkers and people that were going there every day, and taught them how to haze, and staff hazed. And so, I mean, we have a lot of things that kind of go on as needed. You know, when stuff comes up, we have to be really responsive, and we do it, you know. So that for sure was part of our outreach. That was informal because, you know, the people that are in the park on any given specific day walking their dog are the ones that are really going to see those coyote families in those areas. And so we made sure that, you know, the people who were out there, especially on the days that there was a few sightings or during that week, and we taught them, okay, this is what you do. You stare them in the eye. Don't break eye contact, take off your sunglasses, make sure you're looking at them and acting like the baddest person ever. So,
That's incredible.
yeah, so there's a lot of interesting things that kind of go into this that really aren't called out, you know, like that are other work items or tasks that kind of go along with it, with this
Can
program.
I ask a question? Since the Jeff and Paige has been on there since before I joined, what is the history of Jeff and Paige? And I don't have children, so I've never went.
So Jeff and
tell me more.
Paige is a couple that performs music, and they do like little skits, and they dress up, and it's about wildlife. It's about, they sing songs about, don't go into a little cave during the winter because a bear might be in there. So there's like a lot of little lessons for kids, or, about anything from littering and recycling to animals and wildlife, and just information about all kinds of outdoor type education topics.
And it is primarily focused on outdoor education?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Allison, did you happen to capture the numbers from the snake information? I see raptor information at 42. I didn't know if snake was the same. You didn't have it listed.
No, I did not capture that because I want to say there was probably about 100 people in the tent at that specific time. That's why I kind of put this total here, because it's a little deceiving, these smaller numbers, especially for Ashley's booth, this 42 number,
So does anyone have any other ideas they might want to throw out to Ashley? Cool. Allison, does that give you everything you need for?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Thank you much. All right, very, very, very quick updates and look aheads. The Pros Tour, there were 3 of us out there. There was myself, Peter from ProStack, and Corbett from ProStack. It was awesome. Allison, Patrick, and Matt gave us a tour all around Superior. If you guys have never been up to the Bladder that's up near the Coyote Ridge area, go check it out. A, it's really freaking cool, and B, it's probably the best view in all of Superior. And then just a lot of other really cool small insights. Tract H, Allison, any updates on that?
I know that some seeding has been occurring this week, so that's the only thing I've heard through the grapevine.
Okay.
It
Joel.
looks pretty done. I mean, it looks like all the vegetation is in and the sidewalks or the trails in.
When can the people start using the trails, or that trail? Are they allowed to use it at all? Do you know?
There's no access.
There isn't? You can't cut across?
I don't know if all the inspections are finished and everything yet, so I don't think it's anything, it's
I haven't
ever
seen
yet.
any of the grand opening in the updates.
Well, I think it's also because it ends.
Yeah, it's a
so
trail of
really-
nowhere still.
Yeah, so it's sort of like. It's
But
just
people are
like-
still going to be curious, like, ooh, what's this?
Yeah,
Wow,
probably. Joel's not here, so no Rocky Mountain Greenway update. Plus, I haven't heard much going on it recently. Anyone from the Shannon contingent?
We do have Sandy here.
Sandy, do you have?
Do you have any update on Rocky Mountain
Yeah,
Greenway?
actually, something significant that has happened was the 6 governments who remain as potential funders for those Greenway connections actually agreed on an IGA finally, and that RFP soliciting an entity to put together a sampling protocol as required by their conditional approvals has gone out.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what the deadline is, and we got that document from our attorney probably a month ago, and it's public information, so you guys could actually get it if you wanted to. Can you put that on your note, the Gable House, forward that to the board? It's the RFP for the Greenway. I mean, for the, yeah. Anyway, if anybody has any problem knowing what I'm talking about, I
Yeah, there's a lot of acronyms there thrown out there. What's an IGA?
Intergovernmental agreement.
Intergovernmental agreement. Those 6 entities had to sign an agreement on how to proceed on this, and that actually was very contentious and delayed the project quite a bit, because I think it's been a year now since this was before us. So it's been a slow process, but that is a pretty significant
Awesome.
thing.
Thanks for the update. Shan contingent? Any?
We're waiting on that. I think we have to wait till January to say, are we officially
Yeah.
able
Well,
to go out and talk about it?
I mean, we kind of put out those questions or statements that were, in theory, going to go to the developer. Allison, you haven't heard anything back.
Patrick was gonna send an email.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about it.
Okay.
Okay. And then last, Boulder County update on the Hodgson Harris Reservoir study.
So I've emailed Boulder County back and forth a few times, and they haven't, my contact there has not gotten any direction yet. And so she's been reaching out to her director and just trying to figure out, you know, what the direction is on this item.
Gotcha.
So as soon as,
You mean on the biologists?
for the
Has the town
study.
officially made a request?
No, this is different though, this is.
No, this is part of
this is
that.
a study.
Well, yeah, they're going to use the biologist to do the study.
Right, but we were talking about the biologist contact before, I just want to make sure no one's confused.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
different. It's,
Not us reaching out to the biologist and ecological
this
study.
was
Right.
also, came out of the
Dinner.
joint meeting also. And then trustee Lasis informed me that there was a conversation about the Hodgson Harris, like having a type of ecological study, and that Boulder County would give support for that item. And so I reached out to that department to start this.
Yeah, that is the exact same thing I'm talking about.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were talking about a different item earlier. It was just,
Okay.
it kind of got
Yeah.
mixed together.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the same thing also.
So does it sound like they're making progress on trying to figure out what's going to happen, or do we need to have someone above, like, do the trustees need to?
Do they have a clue what you're talking about?
Yeah.
They did not, this department specifically
Yeah.
did not, hadn't been given any direction yet. And so they're going up their chain of command
Yeah,
to
so why
figure it
don't we
out.
short circuit this and just have Matt Magley send a note to the Boulder County Commissioners again, saying you graciously offered this, could you please tell us who we should contact?
That sounds good to me.
Because the commissioners were at the meeting.
Right, and
Right.
that's exactly what I relayed, but since it hadn't trickled down to that department
But
yet.
I
But now-
sense
yeah.
somebody having to, this may never happen, so let's start top down.
All right. And that was all on our agenda. Anybody else have anything they want to add
Oh, I think at least 5 more things.
before we call it a night?
The funny thing, though, the mink, remember the mink at
Yep.
Hodgson Harris?
Yep.
Somebody else in town
Mhm.
had a mink sighting in another body of water.
Yeah, we saw that.
Yeah.
Bring
So-
some
The
fishes.
carp
Yeah.
on the
Carp on the,
stairs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So, pretty soon, we can go into the fur trade.
We live in Boulder County.
All right. We are adjourned.
On this document. Like, just give 2 minutes for each one.
I think this is a record.
Is it?
3 hours, yeah.
Thanks for being here for us, thank you.
Sure.
Good night, guys. Good night. Oh, you just leave it, I'll put it in the recycling bin.
get food in. Yeah, no, send it over to me, and then, yeah, I'm supposed to give you the thumbs up on it. I actually sent it to Teresa and we're supposed to look at it, and then you sent it